All right, it's about 6 o'clock, Tuesday, May 12th, and I'm going to read through the last 24 pages or so of our screenplay today, which is episode number 8. I think I got confused before. This is episode number 8, Once in a Lifetime. We've experienced some weirdness to this part. In between recording these parts 1 and 2 of this recording, I was listening to a podcast talking about Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment, which was a book I read for the first time sometime in 2020 or so. I was getting into Dostoevsky stuff. Karamazov was the first one I read. I think this was the second or third, and then The Idiot, The Gambler, which I spoke of before, had some relevance to my own life. There's also Notes from the Underground, Demons, that I haven't gotten to yet. And I'm probably forgetting other ones too. So I developed some kind of a kinship with Dostoevsky stuff. Probably my favorite book is The Idiot. It wasn't easy to get through, but it was very satisfying. Left me feeling, I don't know, this feeling of accomplishment that I just got through a large hurdle. Even the Karamazov book was pretty tough to get through. Maybe it took me a couple of weeks reading like 30, 40 pages a day or so. And this was a period when I was reading at work all day, pretty much. I would just show up at work, hide in my office, and just read for like 2 hours. And yeah, Dostoevsky was a big part of that. Spoke about it in my book, spoke about it in other recordings, that it was pretty influential, his style of writing. It's kind of surreal at times, it's kind of existential. Not as much as like other writers, like the Camus book I read, The Stranger, and some other people. Even that Steppenwolf book, Hermann Hesse, that one was kind of out there, even more madmanish. If I didn't say before, the Hermann Hesse Steppenwolf, bringing that up now, that's the reason I titled my original series, The Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy. In the Hermann Hesse's Steppenwolf, he has a book within the book that kind of goes down that path that I'm trying to go down myself. The book he's reading in the book, or the character's reading, is called like The Madman's Daily, or something like that. And I just like the sound of it. I feel like people use that term more in the 1800s, madness, or madman. You madman. I just like the way it sounds. Is there any bands called the Madmen or the Madman? That's a pretty good band name if no one's ever taken it. I'm sure it's been used at some point. But yeah, this has been an interesting ride so far. Circling back to where we left off, we're kind of at the point now where we're going to get into some crazier elements of surrealistic in terms of the imagery, in the terms of the pacing, as Todd gets deeper into his birthday cheer with Edward III and Martha, and who else they might meet along the way. There are some people that I picture in these acting roles that I spoke of before. There are some people, famous people, and some other not so famous people that I picture within this screenplay. Even if it's kind of like a stage play, maybe it becomes more of a cinematic drama at this point, or a cinematic experience with really experimental filmmaking throughout this whole story, but especially the last 20 or so pages as we get to the conclusion. But more than anything, I really thought this helped my writing, because it was a totally different experience. I didn't have this premise in my head. Oh, I'm going to write a story about this guy Todd who's on his birthday journey as all this weird shit starts happening to him. But it's really a dream. Like, I never set out as an outline like that. I just started writing for this one. I don't think I really outlined it more than, all right, let me finish this scene. Now, if I was dreaming, where would this story go in a weird place if it was within my dream, my subconscious? And that's how I framed the outline eventually. It became that. It became an exercise like that. Maybe I was a little bored. I just got through 7 episodes plus my 3 features, and I'm like, I need to experience something new to kind of freshen up the screenwriting experience. I wrote Seeds of Anarchy, then Elegant Eccentrics, or whatever order I did it in, because some of those were supposed to be episodes for this series, the Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy, but they eventually turned into features, Elegant Eccentrics, and Everything is Free. Those are actually ideas I've had from years ago, and when I finally wrote them onto digital paper, they just kept going and going. And once I get to 80, 90 pages, once I see it more as a feature, it's a different type of organization within my head. That I read Everything is Free, and I'm like, this has got to be a standalone feature. I don't know why, it developed like that, and that's how I still maintain that's what it should be. It should be just a horror movie, half musical, half horror. Maybe because the production's a little bit more intense, that you would need a musical cast, and the lead actress would need to be able to sing and dance and play guitar. So it became more of a musical / psychological horror movie. Could Marathon be an indie film? Like I said, sure. Could The Last Prisoner be a standalone? Yeah. Any of them really could be a Laurie story and expanding universe. It is like a Spielberg fairy tale. Did he do Green Mile? I want to say yes, but I'm not sure. I actually never knew that. I think it's Stephen King wrote, or is it Stephen King? Am I confusing shit? Well, who directed The Green Mile? I want to think it's based on a Stephen King book. All right, I was way off. Frank Darabont. It's based on a novel by Stephen King. So I was just getting confused with Stephen King and Spielberg. But The Green Mile was pretty interesting. And this guy also, Darabont, he also directed Shawshank Redemption. Because it does follow that same type of cinematic type of look to it. And it is kind of similar. It did. It got nominated for Best Picture, so good for you. 1999, based on a Stephen King novel. So it's interesting as we develop this story. Todd's at the point now where he it's hard to even look at it through his eyes, because when I say Todd is at this point, I like to believe that every character so far we've met that has a leading role, Todd, Martha, and Edward the Third, might have the most lines of everybody. He's probably the most desirable role for an actor out of all these characters. Edward the Third has the most unique type of voice, but all of them kind of represent Todd, different manifestations of his subconscious. It's kind of what I'm going for, and in a dream scenario, that's how it works. Everything you experience in your dream is supposed to be a part of your subconscious. Some feelings that have been, kind of cramped inside your head, trying to come out and get resolved, some kind of past trauma or some kind of burden that you're carrying for no reason. I saw some clip on Instagram. I don't know what movie it was, but this guy was saying if you carry all these thoughts and everything within your head, your regrets, you never forgive yourself, you don't forgive other people, which is a big problem for a lot of individuals. You've been done wrong, you're trying to move on with your life, and it's just a jumble because nothing gets resolved. And this speaker was saying how I could hold this glass of water, and if I hold it for 5 seconds, it's not going to seem like a lot of weight. If I hold it for an hour, it might start to cause my arm pain or my shoulder pain. If I hold it for 7, 8 hours, it's going to probably make my arm numb if I hold a glass of water up in the air. And that's what he was comparing, holding on to your mental, whatever you want to call it, your thoughts that shouldn't be there. You should just let go of it. How do you do that? I don't know. Maybe you go to Burning Man, you take a bunch of psychedelics, and you burn that fucking effigy. And that's supposed to be symbolic of a rebirth. I don't know, man. Go get baptized again. Go get born again. What do people do when you reach that level of frustration and you don't even know how to survive anymore? Some people do become born again or look for a different spiritual path. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to healthy habits, working out and yoga and shit like that. It's a spirituality. Really, you're just trying to get that feeling back because there's a void of, like, even religious people. You could be in the same religion your entire life. Are you really that sure that you're following the right path, that your God is the right God, that everything you've been taught since you were a child is 100% fact? Of course not. Everyone has constant doubts and different conversations with themselves that are like, was any of this worth it? And that's kind of where this story is going now. Maybe Todd isn't aware of it, but that is the kind of theme of this story. When you think of existential dread, I don't think anything compares to that. Who's better off? The child who was brought up religious since they were 2 years old, baptized in my case, and gone through Catholic school for 12 years, or the person who never even knew that the Bible existed? You can use whatever religion you want to use in this example. Who is the more mentally fit person? Who is the more ethical, moral? Does it rely on that comparison that I'm saying there's a correlation between if you're brought up religion or without a religion? But because I'm looking at only through the eyes of myself as an organized religion person. That's how I was brought up. I don't practice it. I don't go to church since probably in my 20s was the last time. But can you make a generalization like that? Maybe. But I don't know if you can. And what's the generalization? People think if you're not a part of an organized religion, you must be a criminal. You must be a heathen, a Satanist, whatever. But is that really the reality? Of course not. Whether you're a part of a religion or not does not really determine how you feel about your personal ethics or moral code or right and wrong from a legal standpoint. Just, it's almost like a separate layering. If you adhere to an organized religion, you have to put a different layer of belief and a different layer of possible contradiction on top of all the other stuff you're taught as a kid. So it's a tough question that would take hours and hours to get a better concept of, a better, how do people perceive religion, religious versus non-religious people. And I guess it comes to people in power. Will there ever be an atheist president? Or I don't know. I'm just speaking of the United States because it's always been the Christian faith, really. even though there was a Freemasonry aspect, which is kind of similar and kind of different as well. Would there ever be a president who is openly a deist or an atheist or just a agnostic? Is that the other version where you just don't know? You don't know either way? I don't know. I guess that's possible. Like even people who say they're this and that religion, um, I don't think it really identifies them as an individual. Maybe it's a part of their DNA because it is their upbringing, but it's another form of identity that doesn't really give enough information about a person to say I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Buddhist. But who are you really? Like what do you really believe? That's almost like the other question you have to ask afterwards. But all of these existential concepts, when you talk about it like I'm talking about it right now, that sounds really stupid. It's not very entertaining. I said you could think about these things over and over and over, and it gets you nowhere because you're not going to get answers from anybody. You'll get beliefs and you'll get structure from organized religion and you'll get a dogma, but it's not really a proven truth. It's not something you can prove either way when it comes to these existential discussions. So you keep doubting, you keep seeking, looking for some kind of proof of what the fuck is up, especially when things go crazy in your life. And when you go through those things, it's not a lot of fun. Eventually you just give up. Like I'd rather just live in this somewhat ignorant position as an agnostic, if that's the right term, and just say, fuck it, I'm going to be living my life. If I'm alive, I'm going to try to live happy and do what I want to do, which is kind of the absurdist look too, from what I understand at least. Absurdism, which I talked about before, and the differences between nihilism. Absurdism just wants to almost appreciate the fact that you don't know what the fuck is what. You don't know if there's a God or not, or what religion has the best path. So why keep chasing it? Chasing that existential dread, because that's what you're going to be left with. It's a circular type of argument. You don't know the answer, so you go searching for the answers, but you never really get any answers. You just get more life experience, which is good. Maybe you get to experience other people's points of view, which is good. Yeah, at least I think so. Maybe not all the time. But if you can write a story like I'm writing here, like I wrote, and put it in different, more creative, varied descriptions of what existential dread really boils down to, and put it in these weird images and weird characters, like that's exactly what this story is trying to accomplish. I don't know if I got there. There's been plenty of other works of art that deal with stuff like this for centuries, people trying to at least feel comfortable as a human being and not feel guilty about this or that, guilt by association, or just guilt in general. A lot of religions that are biblical rely on guilt and shame and fear. You're shamed. Go to confession. You sinner. You were born with sin, but we're going to save you. The foundation of Adam and Eve's story is all about shame, about being naked, shame, and never being able to forgive yourself or forgive other or God to forgive you. Original sin will always be there to haunt you, to haunt humanity for the end of fucking time. It's like a curse, man. Fucking snake. Whatever metaphor you want to take from that story, it brings a notion of guilt to a child when they learn about these biblical stories. You feel guilt, you feel shame, and you feel fear. That maybe that is, to some degree, that's necessary to instill a sense of discipline in a way. But I think it could have bad effects on people if it's continued and continued. You keep trying to judge other people, put shame on people, and act like you have a right to do that. Whether you're religious or not, it's not really a question of that. Because I used to term it like that religious people always preach, don't throw the first stone, but they don't really live by that, in my experience. Religious people love to judge each other, but everyone does. That's where I've come to the conclusion, whether you're religious or not, or pretend to be religious, or you're just 10% religious, you just go Christmas and Easter, or whatever the fuck you do. You like televangelists better. Whatever form of organized faith that you practice at this point of your life, whether you do or don't, I feel like that's a part of human nature, to judge and be envious and want to make people look bad, to make you look better. Want to lift yourself up by putting other people down. Maybe that's a branch of narcissism. Maybe that's because it happened to those people and they're trying to do it to other people, like to turn around that curse, that original sin. Like, it's such a weird concept. The weirdest concepts I remember as a kid is like original sin and free will, which are connected. Free will, or is it predestination, where nothing you do really matters because there's a higher power leading your path, and all you're doing is exactly what God, or whatever this force is expecting you to do, because you already wrote your story. Like the Donnie Darko, I always go back to that, following the orb to the fridge, because that's your time path, and you couldn't have prevented that. You couldn't have stopped it. Is there free will? It's a part of that movie. If you look at it, Noah Wiley's the teacher, and Donnie Darko's asking him about that Grandma Death book about time travel, and they're getting into a discussion about free will. And I think it's a religious school, so Noah Wiley's like, I can't continue this conversation with you because it might contradict religious principles like free will. It's going pretty deep into it, but it's a concept you don't understand. Where do your thoughts come from? When you go into those discussions and listening to people like Sam Harris, who has a great podcast about that, look up Sam Harris Free Will. And he's comparing it to like a record player inside your head. And certain records will hit the turntable. And that's where your thoughts are going to come from. He's kind of looking at your thoughts kind of like that. It's formed from your nurture and nature working together inside your head. Or it's coming from some other place. But it's a weird thing to think about, because it makes you feel like a puppet, like you don't really have whatever little power you think you have to affect your own path in life. It might even be less than what you think, and nobody wants to think that. America is all about live free or die, and don't tread on me, and all that, which I agree with to. Most of the time I agree with those statements, that what I said, you shouldn't put your bullshit on other people. I think everyone would be happier if they had that luxury of privacy, independence, and individuality to not be affected by other people's bullshit. Everyone would be happier. But I think, yeah, that's the struggle of political parties and political systems. How do you make people feel like they're in control, like the Wizard of Oz? They're walking their path, but there's really a fucking wizard behind the curtain calling all the shots, and it really shows you how fragile everything really is, because it's built up a lot of politics. I go back to politics again, even though I hate talking about politics, but it's a part of this. the political system is like a religion in a way. Yeah, it's based on laws. It's based on uh, the faithful followers of a political party. It is like a very cult-like following. The cult of Trump, the cult of, I don't know, I was going to say Kamala Harris or Biden, but I don't know. I think Trump's more of a cult figure. He's got more of a cult-like following than, because he's such a weird type of experience right now. And I think Biden and Kamala Harris were just kind of blah. And Trump's like I don't know how to term him really. Is he a populist? Like people say he's a populist. If Trump is the populist, he's the man of the people, then yeah, everyone's the wizard behind the curtain is really putting a show on. Because like how crazy is that? That like a billionaire dude is the man of the people. I don't know if he is or isn't. I'm not going to judge it from that level. If he, what his intentions really are, if he's just a puppet anyway. But it is a weird type of thing to think about. Like it's like the $1 million man Ted DiBiase becomes president. He's the man of the common folk. Money, 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 money. Here goes $1 million man. Whatever that song goes. That's pretty funny actually. Money, 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 money. But I guess that's enough. It's enough existential rambling once I get into stupid rabbit holes like that I'm creating myself. The spirit of this, go listen to Sam Harris, go listen to, I don't know, Graham Hancock, go listen to random people on Joe Rogan that are like about neuroscience and stuff like that, like real intellectual people. Go listen to Sam Harris, go to his podcast, look up Sam Harris, Free Will, and he could explain these concepts or discuss them because nobody can really give you the answers, but he could at least open your mind up to these really fucked up philosophical concepts that make you wonder about everything, everything and anything. All right. I think I talked for enough about random shit. Now let's get to this stupid story. See how Todd celebrates his fucking birthday. What do you say? We're on page 24. Let's begin. I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible here. We're inside Todd's car in the daytime. Right before this was they were leaving the grocery store and they were just pulling out of the parking lot. Now they're driving away down a busier street as Edward and Martha are squeezed right next to Todd in the front seat. Yeah, there's back seats, but it looks funnier like this, so that's how I wrote it. Edward's in the middle, Martha's on one side, and Todd's on the other side. Martha's beginning this conversation here. New Eden glistens above for the worthy, leaving those detestable to perish in this material realm. The return, the patriarchy, the horror, Edward III. The return, the spawned fluid, the bland indulgence. Martha pounds her fist on the dashboard. Martha. The return, the blinded, the recycled ambition. All three of them gaze up now in awe towards the griffin as it soars above. So it's almost like this griffin is just following them around. Again, this is probably a dream scenario in Todd's head. So this griffin is just following him around. Edward III. Spirits in the material backwash. Todd rolls down the window and tosses gold coins out of his bag to random pedestrians and homeless people on the street. Edward III. Save your coin now. The ultraviolet spurns the chip, while Achilles hobbles and gathers. Martha rolls up her sleeve and tears off a piece of rotting flesh from her arm. Martha. This is my framework. Thou shalt never goest hungry. So we're getting weird now. This is probably when the audience would be like, all right, what the fuck? This is definitely some weird nightmare. Martha is tearing off a piece of her rotting flesh off her arm. This is my framework. Thou shalt never goest hungry. Edward freaks out at this and slides away from her into Todd's lap. As he struggles to steer, Edward III. Save your flesh, woman. Cannibal cults eat the meek. The magic bullet performed each morning to the winding gallery of morbidity. Martha tosses the flesh out the window, then squeezes some of the blood from her wound into her hands. Martha, drink and let your vulnerabilities and fears be at ready exploit. Martha and Edward hug each other tightly now. Edward and Martha, they're going to be saying their lines of dialogue here, conflicting with each other. They're going to say their lines at the same time. So Edward III is saying, vampiric beatitudes, carry the cross, delay the witching hour, for the guilty feel no shame, and the shameless envisage no guilt. Martha saying at that same time, the soul cleansed in fire to reclaim animal favor, bodies but vessels of ineptitude and doubt, as we redraw all borders. After this very dramatic passage, and they're speaking over each other, Martha and Edward III are now hugging even tighter and sobbing as Todd tosses out more gold coins out the window. Edward III, while sobbing, save some coin, I said, for the reservation. Todd taps on his watch. Todd, not scheduled. Edward quickly reverts from his somber mood, chuckles, and pats Todd on the back playfully. Edward III, nonsense, my pickled proprietor. Celebration be needed on this day of most particular cheer. Be no future for the weary and wicked alike, my lucid, synthetic redeemer. Martha clutches her crucifix and stares out the window. Martha quietly to herself. Let Icarus commence his ascension. Edward is now patting Todd on the back more forcefully as he belly laughs. Edward III. Out from the womb once again. Test case for this nubile nightmare. Could anyone wish for a more enlightened simulation of confusion? All right, we got a weird scene there in the car. Originally, this entire story was going to be exactly like that. Just weird conversation after weird conversation. 50 pages of just three people, whatever I came to at least, in a car driving. It would just get weirder and weirder. We would start just Todd by himself. By page 10, he's hallucinating Edward. And then by page 20, he's hallucinating Martha. And then later on, more characters come until it gets just insanely stupid. I couldn't get there. I'm kind of disappointed because that would be a cool concept. But I had to add other parts to this to make it more appealing, more entertaining to myself. We're now at like a Chuck E. Cheese's children's restaurant in the daytime. As Todd, Martha, and Edward sit at a table and around these nightmarish, like, children characters, like a demonic Chuck E. Cheese. All three of them are wearing tinfoil hats, and each one has an apple in front of them, as three waiters that are dressed as creepy bunny rabbits finish up their birthday serenade to Todd. Three bunny waiters are singing together. And you smell like 1, 2. These waiters dressed as bunnies are standing behind him and massaging his shoulders. Bunny waiter 1, this is like an ASMR effect. Shut your eyes and escape the cage. Bunny waiter 2, skin shed for subterfuge. Bunny waiter 3, ashes to ashes. 4 musicians, also dressed as creepy bunny rabbits, perform a trippy, slowed-down version of Once in a Lifetime on a small stage. Bunny waiter number one opens Todd's eyes wide and forces him to watch the horrific insanity on stage, like the famous scene from A Clockwork Orange. 3 more bunny waiters enter, carrying a towering birthday cake to the table, with 3 large lit candles on top. They plop it down onto Todd's lap while Edward and Martha dip their fingers into the frosting and feast. Edward III to Todd. Can you truly be your own betrayer? Martha licks some of the frosting, then spits it onto the table. Martha. Save your complex reflux. Abraham Lincoln now appears from a haze of smoke and walks towards Todd, who is now just sitting there. Yeah, sorry. So Abraham Lincoln, yeah, this is even getting me flustered because it's so fucking weird. It's a dream, so you don't have to make sense here. Abraham Lincoln appears, walking towards Todd, who calmly hands Lincoln his cell phone. Abraham Lincoln, same as it ever was. The 6 bunny waiters, 4 bunny musicians, Edward and Martha pose at the table, recreating the Last Supper painting, with Todd in the middle, struggling to balance the towering cake in his lap. So it's like a ridiculously large, tall birthday cake. Everyone posing together. They all say at the same time, same as it ever was. Lincoln stands at the other end of the table, frames the pose in Todd's phone camera, and snaps the photo. Abraham Lincoln. All that begs remembrance in the end is the shot to the head. The bunny waiters and musicians walk away, leaving only Todd, Edward, and Martha at the table now, as Lincoln hands the phone back, then takes a bite from Todd's apple. Abraham Lincoln. And there the truth of all truths, the greased origin, the last ballywhack of what we've all come to term survival. Edward is exchanging Lincoln's top hat with his tinfoil hat, but it doesn't fit well, so he switches them right back. That's a nod to the one scene in Waiting for Godot when they're like changing hats. As Lincoln takes out a comically big syringe from his suit pocket and injects neon green fluid into Todd's arm. Abraham Lincoln. Receipt? Todd takes a bite from the apple and nods no. Abraham Lincoln. A stroke? Todd. No need. He's now tapping on his briefcase. Todd. Scheduled to keep. Lincoln blows out the candles, engulfing the room in total darkness. So have at it with this scene. Make it as creepy and demonic as you want. A demonic Chuck E. Cheese with these creepy bunny rabbits, like something out of Donnie Darko. Just really fucked up shit here. Abraham Lincoln's like showing up, taking pictures of these people. There's the Last Supper type of connection to this story. Yeah, that's all I can really say about that scene. Moving on, we're now in the parking lot of this children's restaurant. And throughout this story, I don't think there's many other people around. Maybe there were people inside the grocery store. But maybe as we go further, there's less and less people as it becomes more and more apparent that this is just a weird-ass fever dream. All right. Todd is lugging the towering birthday cake towards his car, barely able to see over the top, while Martha and Edward walk by his side. Todd's phone buzzes and Once in a Lifetime plays once more. Female voice from phone. Todd? 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 You have one major life event scheduled for today, Todd. Todd? 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 Edward has enough and violently snatches the phone from Todd's pocket and flings it wildly behind him. Edward III. Cyber Enchantress, be damned! The phone hits a grizzled police officer, Captain Marshmallow Jones, in his 50s, square in the face. He's an incredibly intimidating man, better suited for the Wild West era. Dressed in an old-fashioned police captain's uniform, his sleeves rolled up, showing off his muscles, and a banjo strapped around his back. He immediately pulls out his handgun and shoots at the phone. Female voice from phone. Happy birthday, Todd. On this day in... He reloads and shoots the phone again as the female voice now malfunctions. Female voice, more in a distorted tone now. You look like a monkey. The voice fades out as Marshmallow walks towards the group, places the shot-up phone in Todd's teeth. Because you remember Todd's holding the cake. He doesn't have any hands or anything. So he just puts the phone in Todd's mouth. Captain Marshmallow Jones is speaking now. Left brain versus right brain. Nature versus nurture. Freedom versus death. Don't be fooled by the hissing of manipulated data now, son. Marshmallow Jones lifts Todd up from behind as he's struggling to keep the cake from toppling over. And now he's carrying him towards his car while Martha and Edward follow behind them. Captain Marshmallow Jones. Balance is everything. Maintain the straight and narrow until the straight provides no more room to breathe. Suffocating temptation with noxious fevered spells. No vacancy? Just more time for the wild. Off the grid mutiny. He gently drops Todd back onto the ground as they reach the car. Now he reloads his gun, then shoots blindly into the sky until he's out of bullets, acting like a madman. Captain Marshmallow Jones. Woo! I hope the stars vomit meteors this day and kill everyone you love. He pounds his chest like a raging ape, then opens up the back door while Todd calmly places the cake inside. Two things here quickly. I do kind of picture like a Joe Rogan type playing this role. It's not a major role here. Just when I was working 6-7 years ago, I had to call like this maintenance worker, waste management, to come pick up this really big dumpster. And he was kind of a tough, grizzled old dude. And I filled up this dumpster to the brim, more than I should have, with just random shit that we had at our warehouse. And he's like, you think my truck's going to be able to drive down on 95? And he was like, getting pretty agitated at me. And I was like, all right, man, don't worry. I'll take shit out. But then he's like looking at me in the eye like, man, I hope some of that shit falls out and kills someone you love. And I was like, man, that's like the greatest line of all time. I hope something falls out of the dumpster, falls onto a car, and kills someone you love. I was like, man, if I was making movies, if that dude was still around, I would just cast him. Like Full Metal Jacket. They didn't know who to have as the drill sergeant, and I think that guy was like a real drill sergeant, whatever his name is in that movie. But this dude was awesome. I don't know if he ever hears this. Yeah, man, that's all. This is the role for you, my friend. That waste management guy. If you're still around, man. You are Captain Marshmallow Jones, whether you know it or not. So now he's pounding his chest like an ape, opening up the back door as Todd places the cake inside. I already said that. Inside the car, Marshmallow's in the back seat, munching on the cake. Banjo by his feet, while Todd gets in the driver's side. Edward and Martha are squeezed next to him as usual. Todd now grabs the phone from his teeth and pockets it. And it's all mangled, shot up at this point, barely workable. And then he starts the ignition and drives away onto this rural road. Captain Marshmallow Jones is now beginning this conversation. With all benevolent regard to tradition, it may be best to change one's personage and vision from time to time. He cleans some cake frosting off his handgun with his shirt, then reloads. Captain Marshmallow Jones. Too many former names to recall myself, and still never once lost. Always in the present, steady as a ghost in heat, prepared for the army of the night. He pounds his chest. Captain Marshmallow Jones. At sincere peace completely. Martha eyes him through the rearview mirror. Martha. Do you practice transcendental? He tips his police hat towards her like a gentleman, changing his tone. Captain Marshmallow Jones. Ma'am, that would be affirmative. He plays with his handgun like a cowboy now, as he shoots multiple rounds directly above his head, making air holes in the car's roof, while hooting like a madman. Captain Marshmallow Jones. Woo! Is there time slotted for the transcendental? Edward taps on his wrist as if he had a watch on. Edward III, schedule to keep. So he's kind of mocking Todd there. That's usually Todd's line. Captain Marshmallow Jones. That right. And just who dares try control time in this here glorified, unrelenting loop? Edward points towards Todd with his thumb. Edward III. Birthday boy. Marshmallow then performs a bluegrass cover of Once in a Lifetime on his banjo, shocking the others with his gentle singing voice. So yeah, he's a total alpha male meathead type. And now he's singing like, I don't know, Graham Parsons. He's got this really gentle, soothing voice. Captain Marshmallow Jones is singing, you may find yourself living in a shotgun shack, and you may find yourself in another part of the world, and you may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile, and you may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife, and you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? And this is like a bluegrass cover, so that would be cool to find someone totally reinvent Once in a Lifetime in that bluegrass style. That would be very interesting. I think I've actually found that on YouTube. Somebody had a cover like that. I think I vaguely remember. I'll try to find it later. Now Marshmallow is humming the chorus of the song while playing some more banjo riffs. Then he's glancing out the window towards the griffin soaring high above. And he cuts the song off and pounds on his chest again. Captain Marshmallow Jones. Time for the transcendental, is it not? He shoots more rounds from his handgun above his head. Captain Marshmallow Jones. Demands of the analog psyche. Woo-wee! Now Todd's phone is somehow coming back to life inside his pocket, but the voice on the phone is muffled and distorted from the gunshot damage. Female voice from phone. Current temperature is 115 degrees. It's a real scorcher out there, Todd. Marshmallow reaches out his huge muscular arms and playfully puts Todd in a chokehold as he struggles to breathe and swerves wildly all over the road. Captain Marshmallow Jones. The sun shall inflict all you love with incurable fever and flesh-eating host until you return to the path of least resistance, the wretched old man. Todd is gasping for air. No need. So he's kind of gasping for air as Marshmallow has him in a chokehold. And he's like, no need. Marshmallow releases Todd, and Todd is now able to catch his breath. Captain Marshmallow Jones. Go on now, son. It is truly time for the transcendental. I don't know what accent to give this guy. Sometimes I picture him as Brad Pitt from Inglourious Bastards. Like the Arrivederci. One of the funniest scenes in any movie ever is the Inglourious Bastards when Brad Pitt's character is pretending to be an American or an Italian. Sorry, he's pretending to be an Italian Nazi or some shit, and he's trying to fake an Italian accent, like Arrivederci. It is the funniest comic relief in any movie of all time, if you know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't think I've ever laughed harder than that one scene. It just fits the mood perfectly. It's such a horrific movie to that point. The first scene is like the most intense scene ever. Then you got the bear Jew killing people with baseball bats, all these crazy Nazi people. You're about to burn this theater with Hitler inside and do all this crazy shit. And then, so you're at this point in the movie, you got this tension inside of you and this suspense and all this horrific shit. And then you have this comic relief, and it's so perfect, man. So sometimes I picture Captain Marshmallow Jones with like that Brad Pitt, whatever his voice was in Inglourious Bastards. Go on now, son. It is truly time for the transcendental. I don't even know what I'm trying to conjure anymore. Anyway, we're at a gas station now. It's Todd, Marshmallow, Martha, and Edward. So now it's four people. Four people now. It's been three people up to this point, but now Marshmallow's tagging along. And they're all sitting cross-legged in front of a gas pump. Todd's car behind them. They meditate, eyes closed, right there in front of the gas pump, as other cars are gassing up at other pumps around them. Marshmallow leads the group chant here. Captain Marshmallow Jones, Todd, Martha, and Edward III, Captain Marshmallow Jones, Todd, Martha, and Edward, So they're all just meditating here, getting really into it now. And Marshmallow is now lifting Todd up, bear hugging him with all his might, as Edward and Martha continue the chants in the background. Captain Marshmallow Jones. So this is just a brief conversation between Marshmallow and Todd. Captain Marshmallow Jones. I'm just going to call him Marshmallow to make this flow better. Marshmallow. Fear is much too convenient a scapegoat. Todd. Fear of life or lack of breath. Marshmallow. Death as metamorphosis, the last-ditch name change. Todd. Life, an endless echo of victimized prestige. They bear hug even tighter in silence for a few moments, as the other patrons are calmly gassing up at their vehicles around them and barely even notice it. Todd. Meaning drained from traditional recruitment and diluted cinematic spectacle. Marshmallow. Meaning ripped from the headlines, as antiquated as if the sky was falling. Todd. Still meaning in shame. Marshmallow. Take the meaning then, and perfume your pits with the scent, until you merge as one with the pestilence, the worm-riddled, the inglorious, the liars, the witches of vanity, the blood-sucking old guard. Marshmallow hugs him even tighter, as Todd is full out sobbing now and tapping on his watch. Captain Marshmallow. The collapsed lung misanthropes, feasting on Chicken Little each and every night. Todd. This emotion was not scheduled. Captain Marshmallow. Ever grateful for the falsified odor of human melodrama, for one day your innards will fuel this naturally frenzied cycle, meal for the squirmers, messiah to the dirt non-essential. Todd is sobbing even louder as Marshmallow hugs him to the point of suffocation. Marshmallow. Tears of joy. Todd. Shallow words. Marshmallow. Tears of finality. Todd. The structure in absurdity. Marshmallow. Delusion then. Todd. To lose one's mind in solitude without hazard of glory. He wipes the tears away as the two men finally separate. Todd. So you got to look at this. It's a pretty serious conversation going on here. Todd's full out having an emotional breakdown. It's the most emotion we've seen from him. Page 33. Maybe that's fitting. That's the age he's turning. And there's that Jesus connection to 33. And that was like one of my favorite roulette numbers. But I think the real reason was the 33 is kind of it has a numeric type of significance, which I can't really explain. I'm not a numerologist like that. But it's comical because Marshmallow's is this huge dude, and he's lifting Todd up off the ground and just hugging him through this whole conversation. And Todd is barely able to breathe, but he's trying to speak these lines. So he's wiping the tears away as they finally separate. Todd, Angel's clear nasal passageways, only to restrict the higher message. Marshmallow, another mind squandered, awaiting recognition and sober justice. Todd, those who yearn for radiation's consent. Marshmallow, too many demons to master, familiar and foreign. Todd, the revolution of vagabonds with no kingdom to risk. Marshmallow, when at the edge of mental delirium, the path becomes clear without supplementary expectations, for a schedule can only take one so far. Todd, hesitant to call any thought my own, when thinking remains the chore. Marshmallow, won't need to think at all. They sit back down next to Edward and Martha and continue their transcendental meditation, surrounded by vehicles gassing up. So during that last part, I think they'd be kind of calm as they're saying these words. It's almost like these two men are having different conversations. I guess I did that purposely. They're not really answering each other's existential concerns, or just speaking whatever dread that they have. The revolution of vagabonds with no kingdom to risk. When at the edge of mental delirium, the path becomes clear without supplementary expectations, for a schedule can only take one so far. So yeah, they're just going through these random existential discussions, kind of barely connecting the dots themselves as they're talking back and forth. They now sit down next to Edward and Martha, and all three are just meditating to end this scene. Now we're at the beach a little bit later. It's Todd. Well, it's a dream. Sometimes in a dream, you just can change your setting in a flip of the, without a second thought. You're just at a different location. But we would cut that and probably fade back in on a beach, or however you want to do it, whatever technique you would like to use there. Todd, Edward, and Marshmallow and Martha sit on the isolated beach with nobody else around, enjoying the ocean sounds, and then they stretch out in the sand and make sand angels together in unison. Martha helps Todd to his feet and guides him into the ocean until they're about waist deep. She gently dunks his head into the water like an old-fashioned baptism ceremony. Martha, to be washed in the unflavored champagne, will denied freely in vain. A firefighter, male in his 40s in his full uniform, paddles by on a surfboard as Martha pulls Todd's head up from the water. The firefighter is singing, "There is water at the bottom of the ocean. Under the water, carry the water. Remove the water from the bottom of the ocean. Water dissolving and water removing." The firefighter gives the universal surf's up hand sign, then paddles out farther, humming the chorus melody of, Once in a Lifetime. Am I singing the right song? Letting the days go by. Yeah, whatever. We're back in Todd's car on page 35. Maybe there's like 15 pages left. How long is this? 48 pages, 13 pages left. Todd is driving Edward and Martha up in the front in their usual positions, and Marshmallow is leaning peacefully against the cake in the back, polishing his gun with his shirt. Marshmallow, burnt titles, name and property. Better to wait dead among the living than alive betwixt the dead. Edward takes off his tinfoil hat and dumps out a load of sand onto Martha's lap. Edward III. The sands of the mystics, unable to be measured, disappear, reform, only to disappear again, without credence or commemoration. Martha. Eden never inherited with magic tricks. Marshmallow tosses cake at Martha, hitting her right in the face. Captain Marshmallow. Not enough to write existence off the cuff. All right, what am I saying there? It's not enough to write existence off the cuff? He's asking that question to Martha. Martha licks the cake off her face, then stares out the window towards the scorching sun. Martha, dependent on the weather. Edward III, magnetic fates. Marshmallow, and burning bush hallucinations, the tapping of miniature hammers on the hardwood. Edward III, this momentum of being better left unstaged, never more safely packaged within diseased, defective, shrink-wrapped cartilage. Marshmallow cocks his gun. Marshmallow, randomized psyops. Randomized psyops. Tick the clock. Martha, the conversation always ends as it begins. Edward III, the stampede of tribalism. Captain Marshmallow, be killed with kindness. Martha, all the world still spine. What? And the world still spins. I don't know where I got that from. Edward III, on wings of feathers. Marshmallow, and melting wax. Martha, so flutters Icarus. Marshmallow, to keep his damn schedule. Why did I split it up like that? I just think it's more interesting, especially as a play, if each line is a different character. If this whole thing was just Marshmallow, randomized psyops, tick the clock, the conversation always ends as it begins. The stampede of tribalism, be killed with kindness, and the world still spins on wings of feathers and melting wax. So flutters Icarus to keep his damn schedule. So it sounds better when I read it like that because I'm not reading the character names, but I think it's cool to split it up and let each character have one line. That's what I'm going for. It sounds weird because I have to say the name before I read the dialogue, so it doesn't sound as poetic when you have to split it up like that. Edward gazes out the window towards the griffin flying high above. Edward III, embrace the almighty fauna of damnation, creation, menstruation, covenants washed back onto the very sand they were written. Marshmallow dumps sand out of his shirt pockets. Marshmallow, not for simpletons, nor slaves, nor aroused prisoners of solitude, for zealots, scrap metal fabricators, trash pickers reciting myths on once championed mountaintops, carpet bombed with nationhood and indeterminable self-defense. He pounds his chest in an ultimate fit of rage. Marshmallow, leave your money to charity. Donate your unfried organs, buried with your benefits. What is then left to confess? So he's going crazy right now. You could even have him maybe shooting his gun in the air at this point. Leave your money to charity. Donate your unfried organs, buried with your benefits. What is then left to confess? Out of energy, Marshmallow passes out right into the cake. So, Edward III, who will be left to pivot the sanest prophet's dementia? The death of the straw man. Todd drives farther as they all share a brief tense silence. I just thought it'd be funny at that point. Maybe for like 10 seconds they're just driving with no dialogue as they're just whistling or something. Maybe Todd's just so relaxed, whistling to himself as he's driving. And then Martha starts the conversation again. Why allow doubt but to invite these manic flights? Marshmallow tries to speak. his head still buried in the cake. Marshmallow. Release or dispatch, the only conflict of any heroic substance. Todd is singing now. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. All four clap and sing in unison, growing progressively louder and louder. So everyone is singing together. Same as it ever was. 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 Same. And then just cut it there. All right. We're at a drive-through car wash as we approach the ending of this crazy story here. At this car wash, again, this is a weird fucking... We've been to Chuck E. Cheese with demon rabbit bunnies. Bunny rabbits. Rabbit bunnies. We've been to a demonic Chuck E. Cheese. We've been this firefighter surfing in the middle of the ocean. Now we're at this car wash where priests and nuns are waxing, drying, and polishing a few vehicles parked out front of the building, while Todd crawls like a dog towards a hearse. So he's out of the car. He's crawling towards a hearse, carrying his briefcase and the sack of gold coins and the 2 gallons of gasoline. He's carrying all those things as he's crawling on the ground like a dog. Martha, Edward, and Marshmallow lean against his car in the background, watching him struggle forward. Marshmallow. Some callings are best to be declined. Name and nationality surface by the sun as their noses bleed from the cheap seats. Martha. Icarus left without a genuine choice in the end. Edward III. Only one of the voices can maintain you yourself truly. Let me read that again. Only one of the voices can maintain you yourself truly. And then he's talking to himself quietly. Maybe 2. So even he's hinting in this line that this whole thing are just different manifestations of Todd's subconscious. Only one of the voices can maintain you yourself truly. Maybe 2. So maybe he's questioning if he's even real. He's like, wait, if I'm just a manifestation of Todd's subconscious within this dream, then what the fuck am I? I'm not real either, but maybe I am. Edward removes his tinfoil hat, scratches his head, then counts on his fingers. Edward III quietly to himself. Or was it all 3? Todd crawls inside the passenger side door of the hearse as his phone somehow still buzzes from inside his pocket with a notification as Once in a Lifetime plays. The female voice from phone, gaze at the clouds, Todd, and forever gain my wisdom. Good luck. So the voice is still kind of demented at this point. Now we're inside the hearse at the drive-through car wash. As it's passing through the beginning stages of this car wash, as Todd is in the passenger seat, his briefcase on his lap, the sack of gold coins on top of the briefcase, and the 2 gallons of gasoline down by his feet. Father Marco, in his 20s, dressed like a punk rock priest with a mohawk and tattoos all over his arms and neck, sits next to him in the driver's seat, inspecting the bag of gold coins. Father Marco, your own road to Canosa. Satisfied, he tosses the sack of coins into the back seat. Father Marco, the toll paid. They share some brief silence as the car wash proceeds. Father Marco, no guarantees, no returns, no rain checks. I probably shouldn't make him sound like the other characters. Father Marco is kind of suave and kind of laid back, I think. Maybe a bit of a punk rock nihilist as well. He's a priest, but he's got all these tattoos all over and a mohawk. Your own road to Canosa. The toll paid. No guarantees, no returns, no rain checks. Todd appears even more paranoid and manic. With bloodshot eyes, Todd, is nothing real? Father Marco, that's what's keeping you grounded, unable to ascend? Fucking hell. Nobody told you to hold on so damn tightly to any of this. Todd, there must be truth, undeniable, universal, uncontrived. Father Marco, truth was not deemed essential. Father Marco flicks Todd in the groin, causing him to flinch back. Father Marco, reproduction always favors lies. Todd, those voices of guilt? Father Marco, did you come here to confess or jerk off existentially? Because I'm honestly fine with either. Todd, you already know all of it. Thoughts, actions, shame and regrets, time and space finally resolved, reset, replenished. He takes a tinfoil hat out of his pocket and puts it on. Todd, still everybody knows, everybody watches. Father Marco laughs at his hat, then lights a wooden pipe and puffs. Father Marco, nobody ever comes to cleanse at this stage, only to seek a way out. Icarus still proves the better guide. Yet another path of survival. Fuck. He blows smoke into Todd's face. Todd, disgraced from all angles, truth tainted in the corners. Father Marco, you pine for truth like a whiny, neurotic bitch. Todd, my thoughts no longer in tune, barely my own. The frequency was indeed off from the onset. Father Marco, then be judged a fool by fools worshipping fools, constantly fishing to ensure the proper replacement of fools, only to be righteously fooled into submission. He puffs his pipe. As the hearse now approaches the end of the car wash, Father Marco, you already knew what the day would bring. Did you not yourself set the schedule? Todd holds on tightly to his briefcase. Todd, the shame. Father Marco, shame? The cunt's old-fashioned, go-to, mind-controlled, systematic oppression, and to its right, soul-reaping guilt, the tired, final embrace of the impeccable cunted coven. Add the delusions of mercy and the cunted trinity. Wait, where am I going with this? Add the delusion of mercy and the cunted trinity coalesces. Unquestioned and territorial. I think I just wrote that wrong. I gotta read this again because it is kind of a major line here. Shame, the cunt's old-fashioned, go-to, mind-controlled, systematic oppression, and to its right, soul-reaping guilt, the tired, final embrace of the impeccable, cunted coven. Add the delusion of mercy, and the cunted trinity coalesces, unquestioned and territorial. Todd stares at his watch. Todd, the schedule is truly my own then. Father Marco, questions sometimes wait for death to be answered in full. And that is as pretentious as I will become on this brief journey of ours. Fuck you very much. The hearse exits the driveway, the drive-through car wash. Alright, what are we talking about in this scene? Who the fuck is this Father Marco guy? Again, these are all people within Todd's mind. He's creating everything that's happening. Father Marco is a side of him that's more of an alpha. I pictured this Father Marco, like, whether he thinks he has the answers or not, he doesn't give a shit. He's the symbolic character of, if you keep trying to question and trying to pine for truth like a whiny little neurotic bitch, like I always do, then you're going to waste years of your fucking life in this nonsense with other people's bullshit on top of your own bullshit. And you're never going to find any answers because the answers aren't available to human beings. So the existential dread in the end, it's a fucking trap to just trap you in this unending cycle of cynicism and nihilism and all these stupid words. And Father Marco is the representation of that attitude. So he's a cool character. Maybe I should have brought him in a little bit earlier because I like the way I picture him. I kind of pictured a radio host, Spike Eskin. Howard Eskin's kind of a famous Philadelphia sports talk guy, and his son is named Spike, and he does like a podcast about the Sixers, and he does 94.1. He's like a talk show host on there, and for some reason I kind of pictured someone like him, that type of demeanor, that type of an appearance, all tatted up with like a cool mohawk and just like a really alpha type of attitude. And yeah, but that's what he represents. Todd is mostly silent throughout these first 30 pages. He barely says much because he's speaking through other characters. Edward III is one side of his personality, and Martha's another, and Father Marco's another, and Marshmallow Jones must be another. Somewhere hidden in his consciousness, deep down, it's some percentage of his identity. So yeah, I think it's fitting now. He's in a hearse and he's with a priest, and we're getting towards the end now. We move to a pet store. Inside, Todd is laying on the floor, petting a litter of cute puppies, as Once in a Lifetime plays inside the Angelique Kidjo version. Father Marco's nearby, and he's gently caressing a kitten. Todd, to die a wretched old man or excavate original truth. Father Marco, and what about this appears so untrue? Todd, everything, internally, externally, unmistakable sense deprivation. He lifts one of the puppies up over his head. Todd, excavate original truth. Places the puppy down and chases after another. Father Marco, you have chosen your path then. Father Marco puts the cat down and rises, while Todd catches the puppy and reunites it with the others. Father Marco, the game was always set up this way. Predators pick out the easy meat for numerous reasons. What more truth do you really need? Todd, nightmares spawn clearer truth. Father Marco, then you should be more than satisfied. Todd lifts up one of the puppies as it licks his face. Todd, the path of the wretched old man. Father Marco, debase the obvious to decrease the burden. There's always bleach to be snorted, somehow always scrambled into perverted political combat. Yet another path of survival. Fuck. All right, what are we saying? And again, Father Marco represents that, hey, just shut up. Life is pain. Just fucking deal with it. People suck. People are assholes. People are going to fuck you over. People are going to play games with your head, and they think they have the right to for whatever fucking reason. The same shit that I was going through back then, and in a way still going through. And Father Marco's like, put an end to this shit, motherfucker. You want to live your fucking life how you want to live it, then just live. Just go out and do what you want to do. Which, again, it's good advice, but it's not easy to attain that level of freedom, whether you live in America or anywhere. It's very difficult to have that fuck you money where you could be in that type of a mindset. You don't have to answer to anybody else. Who really gets to live like that? Because I would like to know how to get to that point. I'm asking, how do I get to that level up my life to get to that point? That's really what I want. I'm 44. I'm trying to move to the West Coast and do my shit, make music, make any kind of art that I want to make any given day, live in that type of environment and see as an experiment away from society, what can I really provide as a legacy of art? It's not about me. It's about the process. It's about working this hard and knowing that that's the best way to exist as an artist. For myself personally, I'm not the guy going to galas and meeting all these fucking people. Nothing wrong with that. It's just not of interest to me to do shit like that. I'm happier making my art and doing it as unbiased and free as possible without any of this other bullshit from other people. And that's what I'm going to get to eventually. I just don't know how to get there yet. So again, I'm always talking about these things because these were the hamster wheel of thoughts going on inside my head back then, more than it is today. Back then, at least I still had money. I got fired for no fucking reason, but I still had my retirement money, and I had the luxury of spending 5 years without being on a payroll, somebody else's payroll, because I knew what I wanted to do. I built this from the ground up on my own terms, how I wanted to do it, without people's bullshit in my face. I still dealt with people's bullshit over that time period, but not on a daily basis like it was before. So I was able to just clear my mind and get these thoughts out, whether through the screenwriting or songwriting. That's why I enjoy that type of a creative environment. If I'm out in the desert, off the grid, there's not much else going on around me, not many neighbors or anybody else, where I can play like loud shoegaze music at 2 a.m. and record a new song that I just thought of. That's the ultimate freedom. I can't do that from an apartment building. I can't do that anywhere really unless you do that off the grid experience like that. So that's the plan still. I don't know how else to go about doing that unless I live in an apartment and during the day I go to a storage facility or I find some other place where I can be loud as shit and not bother people. Because of course you can't do that living in an apartment. You can barely play acoustic guitar. You can't really do anything like that without somebody complaining or whatever. And rightfully so, yeah. Of course, you don't want people doing that shit, living in an apartment complex. And that's the only way I know how to go about this in the most efficient way is the way I set it up in my Kickstarter. All right, let's finish this story. What do you say? But again, Father Marco is talking about free will when a lot of his lines are about that. He's saying, which path are you going to go down? The wretched old man on your deathbed with all your fucking regrets? Or are you going to be excavating original truth and finding your own truth? And that's an endless campaign that really gets you nowhere, but at least it keeps you searching. It's not all bad to be a searcher or a seeker. I don't think that's a bad way to live your life. I don't like to think of things in that dualistic fashion, but really there's two types of people. One type of person will be taught something as a child in terms of a dogma or a tribal heritage, and they'll stick to their guns no matter what until the end of the time. Just like a political party does. You look at how political parties are set up today in America. You stick with your party through thick and thin, and you go down with the ship. You never admit you're wrong about anything. That's the corporatization of political parties. It's a sickness. It really is a narcissistic sickness in every aspect of American political life. It just got to a point, and it's going to burst eventually, where people are like, what the fuck are we doing? Eventually I'll get there, but I don't know when, how many more generations have to suffer through this shit. But yeah, political parties have become like tribal religions in a way. All right, let me continue. We're now riding down a country road, the bright sunlight shining down onto Father Marco as he's driving the hearse through the isolated forest area. So throughout this entire story, Todd was the one driving, but now he's a passenger. Father Marco's in charge, driving the hearse. Todd's in the passenger seat, gazing out the window as the Griffin is still there, soaring high above. They now pull up to a bait shop, and Todd is walking towards the front door with his briefcase, Father Marco by his side, and they walk inside. Inside the bait shop, Todd loads his briefcase with handfuls of worms as Father Marco blesses them with holy water from a little bottle. So he's opening up his briefcase and just filling them up with worms. And again, you want to make this bait shop look really surreal, almost like a bait shop in hell, just like the other scenes at the Chuck E. Cheese restaurant with the creepy bunny rabbit bunnies. Father Marco is chanting like he was giving a mass now. Lockjawed sermons. Todd closes his briefcase, which is overflowing with worms. Father Marco, no reasons with shadows. They walk towards disgusting slurping sounds, echoing from a dimly lit hallway. Then they turn a corner and view two old obese men eating huge piles of shrimp with bibs on. The two men turn their heads and laugh like maniacs as they spit out bits of shrimp, then scrape their tongues with their fingernails, causing blood to pour down onto the floor. Father Marco quietly to Todd, yet another path of which I won't linger. Father Marco and Todd at the same time, like they're reading each other's minds. Fuck. That's what they say at the same time. Just they're looking at these disgusting pig men and they're chomping on shrimp and scraping their tongues with their fingernails. All this blood pouring onto the floor. Some demonic scene out of some weird Jacob Ladder type of experience. A bad acid trip is what you can term a lot of this movie, at least this part here. They walk away in disgust and return as the two pig men return to feasting like slobs. Now later on we're at a lake in this beautiful forest as Todd is opening his briefcase by the shore and tossing handfuls of worms into the lake. As Father Marco leans against the hearse parked nearby, smoking his pipe. Father Marco, I think your path becomes clear. He opens up the passenger door and places the 2 gallons of gasoline onto the ground. He gets in the driver's side, starts the ignition, sticks his head out the window, then slowly drives away. Father Marco, stop playing dead. Todd watches him drive away in a panic. Todd, wait, how do I get back? Father Marco, you don't. Todd is now turning towards the lake as Father Marco drives away. And he spots this disgruntled old fisherman, Gary, who's in his 70s, who's on the shore, seemingly appearing out of thin air. This guy just pops out of nowhere and is fishing. He's casting his line into the lake, and then he eyes Todd. Gary, why'd you stop, bonehead? They share some awkward silence, and then Gary continues. Well, go ahead. Keep on tossing. Todd understands now. He opens up his briefcase and tosses more worms into the lake. As Gary gets a bite on his line immediately, but struggles to reel the fish in. Gary, unusual. Todd rushes over and helps him reel in the most absurdly large catfish you could ever imagine. As Gary smiles proudly and pats him on the back. Gary, once in a lifetime. He takes the fish off the line Gary, what passes as mercy these days? He guides the massive catfish back into the lake with Todd's help. Gary, catch to be released, teased into submission, imprisoned inside the mine, then dangled freedom by some new and improved technocratic talking head. They watch the catfish swim away to freedom. Gary, dead on arrival in a world on camera. Todd's phone notification buzzes and once in a lifetime plays as the female voice returns from the phone, still kind of fucked up. You still have one major life event scheduled for today. Good luck. Gary grabs the phone and launches it into the lake. Gary, manipulated black mirrors full of disjointed phantom bait, shapes, sizes, and bandwidth completely unanticipated. Satire sadly of our very own creation to assuage vanity's pleasure. He places his arm on Todd's shoulder. Gary, I do apologize, my boy, but property is theft after all, upon theft upon theft upon theft. Deflected by spies banging that generational war drum, famine, pestilence, white horses galloping 6 by 6 by 6, each night gaining more steam. They sit down on the shore and enjoy the peaceful sounds of nature. Gary, I know. Why should an old wretch like me warrant any opinions in this young man's world? Well, I say let traditions be pissed away while I'm still able to perform such tasks. They lay down on the grass and stare towards the sun. Gary, and leave me to bask in the rays without fear of the next generation's retort, too flaccid, too unaware, same as it ever was. Todd, quietly to himself, to die a wretched old man. Gary blocks the bright sunshine with his arm. Gary, whether the truth appears now is not yours or mine to determine. He stares out towards the lake. Gary, when your blood refuses to circulate, when your mind suggests revolt, when your path to nowhere all of a sudden gets diverted by medical advice on late night television, through lecherous Machiavellian frequencies, the pursuit of the origin surrenders, burnt out to a crisp. Let me read that again. I like that passage a lot. Now that I'm reliving this scene here, this is Gary speaking. When your blood refuses to circulate, when your mind suggests revolt, when your path to nowhere all of a sudden gets diverted by medical advice on late night television through lecherous Machiavellian frequencies, the pursuit of the origin surrenders, burnt out to a crisp. He walks to the lake and stares at his reflection. Gary, one-way ticket to cooperative indifference, the path of the golden parachute. Todd opens up his briefcase and dumps the remaining worms into the lake, while Gary flings his line in again. Gary, I'll stand steady on 2 legs and fish for a while longer. Play judge, jury, and executioner in one fell swoop. My own controllable chaos that needs no truth or destination to prosper. Todd, another path of survival? They stare each other in the eyes for a long silent moment, and then they shake hands firmly. Gary, fuck if I know. Todd walks away with his briefcase, picks up the 2 gasoline canisters that Father Marco left, then glances back at Gary, who cast his fishing line once more. Gary singing, letting the days go by, let the water hold me down. Letting the days go by, water flowing underground. See, you could sing it differently here, kind of just let the actors create a different version, almost like they're singing or just speaking the lines kind of melodically. Gary's a pretty cool character here. I'm kind of sad I didn't give him more lines though. But this is a dream. Sometimes you dream and these people show up and they're gone in a minute or they're gone in 5 seconds. You can't control what the pace in a dream is different. The time in a dream is different. So that's what I was trying to convey in a, how do you write a screenplay based on a dream? Well, I didn't have this dream myself, but that was the mode of storytelling that I was trying to use as a device. If this was all Todd's dream, maybe he's just worried about his birthday party. And he's, when he's sleeping that night, he's having all these fucked up thoughts. But I think it's a cliche if you show at the end Todd waking up in bed, it was just a dream. Like I made sure I didn't end it like that. Because this is just dream world. It's not supposed to go back to reality or anything. All right. We're at a rest stop, like a picnic area, all on the highway, rest stop. Todd is walking. We're almost done. We got 2 pages left, so bear with me here. Todd walks towards some picnic tables, carrying his briefcase and 2 gallons of gasoline. He's passing some teens, eating at one of the tables, each one in zombie mode, with their faces down in their cell phones. He's standing right by them now, opening the gasoline canister and pouring gasoline all over his head and clothing. He opens the second gasoline canister and douses himself more, while the teens don't pay him any mind. They're just looking at their phones the whole time. Some crazy dude is just covering himself in gasoline. And don't try to think of this like this is real now. This is still the dream. It's not like this is all of a sudden Todd in real life and he's like, he had this freak out, so now he's just going to do what he's going to do here. This is still a dream. This whole thing is just one long fever dream. Now he is going through the parking lot of this rest stop area, doused in gasoline. He's walking casually through the parking lot towards the rest area entrance where all the restaurants are. He's carrying his briefcase. He pauses in front of the entrance and opens the briefcase, which contains one matchbox, like one of those matchbook boxes with one match inside. So he grabs the lone match and he holds it against the box about to strike, when he looks up and notices the griffin flying overhead. And he follows the beast in amazement, smiling wide. He's a man at complete peace with himself. And then he calmly strikes the match. So it's almost like you want to fool the audience a bit. He sees this beautiful griffin creature gazing through the clouds above him. Maybe he'll rethink, but nope. He's striking the match. And bam, he's instantly engulfed in flames, running around the parking lot like a human fireball, screaming in agony, while a few of the tourists around him take out their cell phones and rather casually take pictures and videos of the insanity. After comically running around in circles, Todd falls onto the pavement, his flesh now burnt to a black crisp, as more tourists exit the rest stop. And they're surrounding his smoking corpse, which is still on fire, and they're taking close-up pictures with their cell phones, or maybe live streaming this. One obese man eats from his bucket of fried chicken, enjoying the show through his phone's camera, like he was watching a movie, while a fast food employee sprints by with a fire extinguisher and douses Todd's already burnt corpse. So he's no doubt dead at this point. He's like he's a piece of fried chicken. Todd, he's completely like a piece of fried chicken at this point. The fast food employee still holds on to some misguided hope though, as he douses Todd's corpse again with the fire extinguisher, as we begin to drift overhead of this absurd scene, following the griffin as it soars towards the scorching sun. Fast food employee, somebody call an ambulance. I just thought that was a funny ending line. There's like 10 people around Todd as he's on fire on their phones, taking pictures, taking videos. Maybe one of them's live streaming, like, oh my God, you won't believe this. This guy just set himself on fire. And then the one good Samaritan is this fast food employee coming out with a fire extinguisher, finally putting Todd out. But you can tell he's burnt like fried chicken at this point. But the dude is still like an optimist saying, somebody call an ambulance. And there's like 10 people with phones around him just taking pictures and shit. I thought it was a funny way to end it. That's the end. That's the last scene. Again, you would end this as soon as it ends, as soon as the guy says, somebody call an ambulance, it goes to the credits and you hear the beginning of Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads. And then you could just end it there. Yeah, a very hard cut, because by this point, I got through 48 pages. You had to hear me stumble and stutter through this. Hopefully you get an idea, though, of why I did it like this. A lot of people would say, like, oh, maybe Todd is just hallucinating this. And at the end, you can make it look real, and Todd's just losing his mind, and he gets to the parking lot. Everything looks real in this last scene at the rest stop. As soon as he leaves Father Marco and he walks to this rest stop, it would look like it's real life at this point. The sky is normal, but he's still hallucinating this griffin. Should I go that direction? I don't know. I don't like that. I think it's a cop-out. I want this whole thing to just be a dream. His subconscious. This is a fever dream as we experience Todd's subconscious and all these characters that he's creating as he's sleeping. I think it's more beneficial a look at what dreams are, a look at what reality might represent. And you can have just as much existential dread in your subconscious as you're sleeping, coming out in these weird avenues like this. So that's how I'm dealing with my own existential dread, by creating a fake character and creating this dream scenario. I don't want it to be one of those like twists at the end. Oh, he was hallucinating the whole thing. And then at the end, people think everything's real now. Todd really did burn himself. That's not what I'm going for at all. Although I can see a path where that makes sense to some people, because some people set out to write a screenplay that can kind of fool people, or the M. Night Shyamalan type of appeal, where people are so intrigued they have to stick through the whole movie to find out what the hell is what. And I like that too. I write stuff like that from time to time. This one's different to me. It's a play. Waiting for Godot was the inspiration, and Waiting for Godot is just two guys talking to each other about life and death and God, and waiting for some motivation. Maybe that's what that play is about. If you spend your days and years of your life and decades, for some people, thinking about all this existential bullshit, you're going to waste a lot of time. And that's a good message. I think religious people would like this message. Don't waste your time with all these isms, nihilism, existentialism, absurdism, because they are fucking useless in the end. It's good for philosophy. It's good for art. It's good for making a story. Art. When I say art, it sounds like I'm a dog. Art. It's good for those concepts. If you want to be a philosophy major, you're going to have to read Nietzsche and all those other people that more educated people can name. I've only read one. Maybe I read Twilight of the Gods in college. Or Camus, I only read The Stranger. That was good. I do kind of remember it. But you get done a book like that and you just have this weird feeling. Maybe that's more hopeful than some of the other authors, or even the Herman Hesse Steppenwolf made me feel weird after. Like, I didn't really know what I just experienced, but I know it's something meaningful about life and death. And maybe that's the point of Waiting for Godot. If you don't just tell this existential dread to fuck off, like Father Marco is trying to represent here. Father Marco is like the fucking tough dude saying, dude, stop looking for the truth. You're not going to find it. It's going to lead you to more lies. You keep looking for the truth, it's going to lead you to more bullshit from other people. Other people trying to prey on you because you're an uncertain entity. You don't have a tribe. You don't have an allegiance. You don't have a line in the sand to say, this is my party, this is my religion, this is my nationality, this is my race, this is my sexuality, this is my gender. That's more along the line of identity politics, but you can put that in there as a scramble towards an existential dread. That those things can all lead you to that existential dread. And that's the last time I use those words because it is stupid. Existential dread, existential dread. But that's the point of this story. And maybe that's what Waiting for Godot was meant to say at the end, because they're like not moving. Should we go? We're going somewhere, but they just stay there unmoving. And I guess that's maybe what I myself interpret from something like that. It's been a while since I thought of Waiting for Godot or went through it or watched the movie. I did try to read the whole thing. I don't know if I accomplished that. Like I set out to read Canterbury Tales and I gave up on that. I tried to read Gulliver's Travels, and even though that's one of my favorite books, I kind of gave up. I haven't really been reading as a way to escape or as a form of entertainment or just to learn something new or to improve my vocabulary. I haven't been doing that for a long time. The two things that I'm not doing right now that led me to do this in 2020, I was exercising every day and I was reading every day, meditating, exercising, and I was reading a book like every day. Every day I would read at least 20 pages of something. And if you do that, you can read a shit ton of books in a month. Most books could be maybe 300 to 500 pages. If you read 25 pages a day, well, there you go. You could do the math there. You could get through a couple books a month or more than that. I just don't have it right now in me to have that attention to that because I'm not in a stable situation in my life. I'm not living a life that I believe I'm meant to live. And now I go back to my own existential dread. I said it again. Wow, he said he won't say that word anymore. Sorry. It's more uncertainty because I don't have a source of income. I don't own anything in life. I keep saying those two things because that's what makes you feel like a man, or it makes you feel like you achieved some level of success in life. If you can't stand on your own 2 feet, yeah, it's not even, you don't want to be around people at that point because people are just going to look down on you like, oh, look at this fucking guy. He doesn't know how to make it in America. But the path I took since losing my job in 2021 led me to this position. So what do I do at this point? Do I just say, fuck it? This was a good little interlude as I move on to something else now? I can't be at that point and live like a normal, happy person, shiny, happy people. I just can't. I know I'm supposed to do this in some semblance of what my Kickstarter was. I don't know what it looks like, the reimagining of what my project was going to be to create 50 plus. Now it's more in the 60s or 70s because I wrote about 20 more albums since over the last year or so. Ever since being evicted, going homeless, and then moving into an over 55 community. I've written maybe close to 20 albums during that time. While I was working over the winter at Amazon, I was still doing it up until this point. So now I got to try to record maybe 70 concept albums. And there's no way I could do that unless I had the resources and other people to help me get there. So I got to work on that. More on the collaborative side, how do I make these songs actually actual songs? Because right now they're just on paper. But to have people sing these verses and the harmonies and all these horn sections I hear, everything that I put down as a more of a producer role, like what do I want this to sound like? Last night I started my first new concept album, and I was like, I've never done new wave music. I kind of appreciate it. I'm not huge on the Joy Division or the Smiths or the Cure. That's not really my bag, man. I think it's kind of like the forerunners of emo was Robert Smith and the Smiths and Joy Division. And rightfully so. The dude from Joy Division had a miserable life, man. Really miserable. He might have a connection to that movie Strozek, which I wrote about. Last month's essay was about Cool Hand Luke and Strozek, that movie by Werner Herzog, which deals with a similar story as this one. You want to look at existential shit, I'm saying it again. Watch Strozek. That's existential dread to a T. Immigrant comes from Germany or whatever. He moves to America and he's unable to make it. And he looks at it from a more comical point of view. And then at the end, he kills himself. He goes to he loses his mind and he's like, I don't want to go through this again. He already moved to another country to find a new path and it didn't work out. And now he's going up this ski lift or something. He's about to blow his brains out with a shotgun. It's a little bit more dramatic than the story I just shared here. But why is Todd burning himself and ending his life in this crazy fashion? What is he protesting something? Because a lot of monks and stuff will kill themselves like that. What's it called? Immolation or self-immolation? The cover of Rage Against the Machine's album, where monks will sometimes just set themselves on fire and die in protest of Chinese occupation or whatever the hell it was. Yeah, that is fucking insane. How do you reach a point in your life? It's not even like the mind of a suicide bomber who has like a political cause. I guess it's similar, but it's like if you set yourself on fire to protest something, you're willing to die for a cause to that crazy of a degree, because it is crazy. Or people who starve themselves to death, hunger strikes and stuff like that. Sometimes it might get a message out or create some kind of movement. Like that shit was in my head. Learning about the Cathars, when the Cathars were ready to die, they would just starve themselves until they died. The Cathar priests back in those times, supposedly, a lot of them would die like that when they felt like their death was coming and they wanted to get all the impurities out. I don't know the reasoning behind it. Something to do with that. So why does Todd burn himself in that last scene? Why is he burning himself? What does that represent? Whether it's a dream or not. If you burn yourself to death in a dream and you go see a psychiatrist about it, Doc, I had a dream where I doused myself with gasoline and then I struck the match and I just burn up in a fireball like a piece of fried chicken. What does that mean? I don't even know. I really don't know. It can mean whatever you want it to mean based on this story. It's really just it's a look at why, because I always say from that perspective that, yeah, Todd's life isn't meaningful. I don't know what he really does in his real life. I'm living in his dream right now. I'm living in his dream, and part of his character is Edward III. Part of his character is Martha. Part of his character is Marshmallow. Part of his character is Father Marco. And then Gary at the end, the old man, the old wretched man. But Gary was actually pretty cool. Like, I'm thinking of that line from Pink Floyd and Animals. There's a song, I forget what song, where he's like, "You're just an old man dying of cancer." I forget what song that is. I gotta look that up because it's a good line. You want to listen to angry punk rock Pink Floyd? Yeah, Animals is a great album. Just an old man dying of cancer. Conor Oberst has a song, "I don't want to die in a hospital." I'm singing it wrong, but I think that's what the lyrics are. Just an old man dying of cancer. Just another sad man. That's from Dogs. Yeah. Let me look that up. That's a line from Dogs from the 1977 Animals album, describing a ruthless businessman who ends up alone and unloved, and he's just withering away. He made all his money, and now he's withering away from cancer. I really like that song. Really enjoyed that entire album. Dogs lyrics. Let me read some of these lyrics and see if they subconsciously led me to conclude Todd's life like that. Because maybe it is. Maybe Todd was a businessman, because that's how I represented him in his dream, at least, through that main character of him. The first version of Todd we meet is Todd himself as that American Psycho type of guy. You gotta be crazy, gotta have a real need, gotta sleep on your toes, and when you're on the street, you gotta be able to pick out the easy meat with your eyes closed, and then moving in silently, downwind and out of sight. You gotta strike when the moment is right without thinking. And after a while, you can work on points for style, like the club tie and the firm handshake, a certain look in the eye and an easy smile. You have to be trusted by the people that you lie to, so that when they turn their backs on you, you'll get the chance to put the knife in. You got to keep one eye looking over your shoulder. You know it's going to get harder and harder as you get older. Yeah, and in the end, you'll pack up, fly down south, hide your head in the sand, just another sad old man, all alone and dying of cancer. There's more. This is a very long song, but maybe I'll stop there. Yeah, there's a part of this in this story, definitely. Maybe this is more political. The whole Animals album is a critique of capitalism. It's a critique of working all your life and then retiring when you're old and washed up and ready to die. A lot of people waste their life with these pursuits that really are not that fulfilling, but at the time, it seems like it is, because it's feeding you, it's keeping you fed, it's giving you some kind of purpose, but in the end, you're just a sad old man dying of cancer. Maybe Todd is that representation of that lyric in a way. Maybe he's ending it now in his 30s because he doesn't know what else to do to get away from that path. The path Todd is on is to be alone, a sad old man dying of cancer in his 70s or 80s, all alone, just withering away, regardless of how much money he's made in his life. Doesn't really matter at that point. So maybe that's a good explanation. Thank you, Pink Floyd, for clearing up Todd's path here. And Todd's just like, all right, I don't know what other path I can go down to divert from becoming that sad old man. And maybe he looks at Gary in that last scene, that conversation that Gary kind of has. And maybe I got to go through that again. Maybe it would bring out different responses in me. But to keep this more simple and so I don't talk for another 2 hours about random shit, I just thought it was a cool ending. Why not? We saw Bowie die in the first episode because it was trying to be a tribute to Easy Rider, and that's why I set up the ending like that. I'm not trying to be like, oh, you got to give everyone a happy ending. That's not how I write. That's not how I try to get these stories out. If I was writing like that, I would be trying to write movies for Hallmark movies or Disney movies. And yeah, I would love to do that too at some point. If I could write a great animation idea for Pixar, I would definitely do it. I'm not against that. I'm not going to see like, oh, that's not real art. Yeah, Toy Story is awesome, man. Pixar makes amazing movies, but that's not what this movie is specifically. This series is not supposed to be like that. The Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy is exactly what it sounds like. There's got to be crazy people in every one of these episodes. And in this one, well, it's really all the characters, but when you boil it down, all these characters are a part of Todd coming out of his subconscious from somewhere deep inside of him. So Todd is the madman here, but luckily this is just a dream he's having. And he's going to wake up and maybe remember this dream, maybe not. He'd rather be having a wet dream, probably. Like I was talking about in the first part. I've never had a good sex dream where you're just having crazy sex with people. So, yeah, I say that a lot. When I transition between thoughts, I'm always saying, so, yeah. And again, like I said, yeah, so, yeah. I've noticed that if you record yourself for 6 hours a day, you're going to get annoyed by your own tone of voice, your own inflections, and your own, oh, I'm taking myself too seriously. You're going to get annoyed by your own nasally voice sometimes. But that's just how it is. I've heard that from musicians too. The first time they record something and they hear their voice, they're like, wow, I hate my fucking voice. I've done this for a while now, speaking for 3 to 6 hours a day. Yeah, it improves. I'm getting better at it. I feel more comfortable. I'm not like being shy, or I don't care about people's perceptions. I know I don't have the greatest voice or the greatest vocabulary or the greatest speaking skills. I'm trying to get better by going through these scripts, and I think I've improved a little bit at least. From the first one, Seeds of Anarchy, I wasn't really sure how to approach that, but I think this is helpful to go, especially a script like this, with some of my favorite lines and dialogue. These characters are really likable. Even Gary, the old man fishing, like, I don't think he's like the representation of that Pink Floyd song. Gary's not really the old man, alone and sad. I think Gary's more of just a disgruntled, like grumpy old man type, but he's really not a bad person or anything. The Pink Floyd depiction of this sad old man dying of cancer, moving south to just wither away. I think that's more of the Gordon Gekko or somebody like that, who spends their life thinking that earthly possessions and dominating people is the way to achieve your status, achieve heaven on earth. That your social status, your financial status, your corporate title, and how you are viewed with your peers of all these sharks on Wall Street. That's what Pink Floyd's talking about, Roger Waters specifically, because he's usually very outspoken about that type of a capitalist pig mentality. That's what Animals is. Animals is a critique of, like, I guess it's the opposite of Animal Farm. Animal Farm's kind of critiquing communism. I feel like Animals is critiquing capitalism. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Um, just the type of capitalism that I talk about is cutthroat, almost like an oligarchy. Is Animals by Pink Floyd. It's a very angry album, yeah. I think it's the most punk rock Pink Floyd ever got. Is Animals by Pink Floyd about capitalism? All right, Google actually, yes. According to Google, yes, Pink Floyd's Animals is a direct critique of capitalism and social stratification, loosely based on Animal Farm by George Orwell. It uses these animal metaphors to depict society as a dystopian, cutthroat system. I use that word all the time, cutthroat. Characterized by corporate greed and social decay. Yeah, it's a great, what was it? Sid Vicious was like, we don't want to be Pink Floyd. The English punk rock scene kind of rallied against bands like Pink Floyd and the Beatles, of course. Phony Beatles mania. I think there is something where like somebody wore like a fuck Pink Floyd shirt, but Pink Floyd got punk rock, man. Like you can listen to Animals. It's not exactly like 3 power chords and loud drums, and it's not a punk in terms of the music, but it is a punk album. It's angry. It's got angsty guitars and amazing guitar playing. There's an anger to that album. Whatever they were going through at that time, that's Pink Floyd's punk rock masterpiece. It really is a great album. When I was doing my 20-mile walks every Saturday years ago, that was one of the main things I was listening to. But, sorry. I almost played a YouTube video by accident. So we've been down a lot of these roads. I'm kind of just repeating myself now, but I'm happy with getting through this script the way I did it, because some of these lines of dialogue really took me a long time. I'm proud of this dialogue. The dialogue was always the one aspect of screenwriting that made me hesitant to even do it, because I don't think I write believable dialogue to the point where I can't write a romantic comedy and have a unique voice, because I would just base it on other romantic comedies. This is more of just a pushing myself to the limit, using words that I've never used before, writing in a language that I would never speak in normally, but I'm creating characters that can justify this. And even if I have to look up words and I still don't know what some of these words really mean, and maybe I'm not even using some of these less obvious words, maybe I'm not using them 100% correct, which is why an editor is always good. Somebody with more of a command of the English language would be helpful, just to make sure I don't say anything too stupid here. But I would rather write a story like this, even if it's kind of weird, and at the end, the guy just burns himself, whether it's a dream or not. It's a disturbing way to end the story. But I don't really look at it like that, because how else would you end a story like this? This whole journey, in the beginning, Todd is like, you have a major life event planned for today. Good luck. And then in the grocery store, remember, Todd, don't forget to buy gasoline. And then Martha runs and gets the gasoline. So he was planning to do this. Was it his own free will leading him to that picnic rest area where he set himself on fire? Was it his free will Was it his decision to do that, or was it predetermined? That's kind of what I was going for, or maybe not, but now I can kind of see it like that, since I specifically wrote lines about free will. What is free will? It's a vague concept that you don't really know how to really explain. At least I don't know how to. I know what it's defined as, but how do you really determine where your thoughts are coming from? Are actions the same? Thoughts and actions? It's almost like Minority Report, the thought police and the precogs. If you think something bad, then you must be ready to act on it. And the precogs, they know what you're going to do before you do it. That's kind of what that Minority Report's about. It's about free will. Even if you're predetermined to do this evil act, do you have the will to stop it? I kind of feel like Minority Report, which is why I consider that one of my favorite movies. Not just science fiction, but one of the best movies I've ever seen. And that's definitely Spielberg, right? I think so. Minority Report and free will. Let's see if that brings up anything. Am I just talking nonsense? It's Philip K. Dick, all right, and Spielberg. I didn't know it was Philip K. Dick, but yeah, I've liked a lot of stuff from that guy. Yeah, all right, this is exactly what I'm just talking about. Minority Report explores the conflict between determinism and free will, focusing on whether knowing the future allows humans to change it. So it's more of that science fiction vein, but it's talking about free will. The story centers on the pre-crime unit, which stops murders before they happen, suggesting human action is predictable and ultimately free will may be just an illusion. So yeah, it's a great story, man. Philip K. Dick was definitely one of the best. I don't know a lot of his stuff to that degree. I can't even name anything else besides that Amazon Electric Dreams show. But a lot of those episodes were really amazing. Philip K. Dick. I should just buy like an anthology of his stuff. All right, he was from Chicago. That's cool. Wrote 45 novels. Born in 1928. Died in 1982. Blade Runner. All right. Yeah, The Man in the High Castle. Like this dude, the Scanner Darkly. Yeah, this dude's a genius, man. Do androids dream of electric sheep? That's what Blade Runner was called? I didn't even know that. I thought that was something that somebody else wrote. There's another one I bought from him, but I forget what it's called. The Hanging Stranger? Did I read that? That sounds familiar. That might be the Kill All Others, I think. There's a episode of Amazon series Electric Dreams about Philip K. Dick stories, and one of them is Kill All Others. And I think it's based on that story, The Hanging Stranger. I'm not sure if I read that or not. But I need to get more involved with this stuff. But I remember Minority Report. The first time I watched it, it was just an instant. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen, that type of experience. I was probably pretty young. And it still stays with me. It's definitely up there. My top 3 science fiction movies would probably be 2001, The Matrix, and Minority Report. I think it would be those 3. Those are the ones I always talk about because they affected me. They actually stayed with me a long time. And the movie Lucy as well. Scarlett Johansson, Lucy, that one stayed with me for weeks. I kept thinking about some of the themes in that one. So that one as well. And I'm sure there's millions of others I'm forgetting about, but I feel like I talk about those the most. even Lucy, because of the connection to artificial intelligence and the internet networking becoming a part of us, humanity and this network of information known as the internet becoming one as that singularity. Yeah, also the Ex Machina was really good. In terms of newer science fiction, Ex Machina was amazing. Definitely rewatchable, great acting. So I'm going down science fiction, even though Once in a Lifetime really doesn't rely on science fiction. It's more of just a surreal fantasy episode, and it's just a fever dream. It's not trying to be science fiction, but you can see it. A lot of these themes can be explored. Free will can be explored through a drama, through a comedy, through like the movie Liar Liar. That's kind of about free will. Like the dude can't lie. Some higher force is preventing Jim Carrey from telling a fucking lie. He's not in control of himself, of his language. Or I love that show Poker Face with Natasha Lyonne. That was one of my favorite shows recently. Poker Face. It's kind of like Columbo, and she like could detect if people were lying. She just she's a human lie detector. Really, really great show. Great writing, great acting. It's kind of similar to that, but I think this is my preferred way to handle issues that cannot be answered, questions that I'll never find the answer for. Nobody will. Whether you really think you have all the answers, there's at least 1% inside of you that is like, what if this shit isn't real? What if all this shit's a simulation? What if we're just dead already and we're already in hell or heaven or purgatory? Like all these, maybe some people don't really like exploring stupid stuff like that because it is a part of what I just said. If you pollute your mind with all of these thoughts over and over again about what is reality, what is this, should I take a psychedelic trip to escape from all of these issues? Will that help me find clarity, enlightenment? What's going to help me the most in terms of my mental clarity? Because I'm not a judgmental person. I will never judge anybody else how they want to find that path. More than anything, I'll be curious. If you found another path towards enlightenment, towards finding a more peaceful, everyday mental state where you don't concern yourself with other people's bullshit, whether they're trying to put it on you or not. If you've reached that level, yeah, I would love to know your trick. Whatever method you've used to really find that peace. I'm not worse off now than I was when I first wrote this in 2020, 2021. I was way crazy times in my life, like literally just losing my mind in 2020 through 2021, off and on. Like I still managed to go to work all the time. I don't think I missed any days of work, maybe a couple, because I was just lost in the sauce. Well, what does that mean? Drunk? No, I wasn't drinking. I was just lost in my own existential sauce. Like, what the fuck is happening right now? And a lot of these same themes that I'm talking about today, I was like actually living through it, having really weird discussions with myself, delusional type of existence where you just have to almost slap yourself in the face. I used to actually beat myself up from time to time, but you have to slap yourself in the face or dunk your head in cold water just to escape from some of the bullshit that you don't understand. So I can really connect the dots myself of why I wrote a story like this. It makes a lot of sense that I would have written a story to this point, because that's kind of how I was feeling. Yeah, I was all over the place, but just like, I think scattered is the best way. When I say anxious, anxiety, it's because my mind was racing in different directions based on other people's perceptions of me and other people's opinions of what COVID was and other people's judgments, and learning things that I thought was true, but I don't know what was really true. And I still don't know 100% either way. It was one of those type of experiences where you can't get 100% clarification from anybody. And it's partially my fault, because I even lived like a hermit before COVID. I lived by myself in an apartment, much like Todd in this story. But I never had freak out moments. I've never had anxiety attacks. I never had paranoia in my life until COVID, until 2020. That's when, I don't know if you want to call it a nervous breakdown or just a midlife crisis, but it was deeper than that, because I was having all kinds of crazy thoughts, man, in terms of religious stuff and apocalyptic scenarios, and I'm sure other people can explain this better if you were going through the same shit that I was going through. It was not a good time for me, but I survived it. I did have some really dark moments. I'm not gonna lie, yeah, there were some really dark moments in my life. More than anything I ever thought would happen. I wouldn't have thought that shit would have been possible before COVID happened. And then later on, I kind of improved as I was going through this process, but maybe I fell into some other bad rabbit holes later on, because I'm not totally free from self-harm. I used to beat the shit out of myself, which I said before in another post. It's more about feeling something, or being, when I would bang my head against my wall or just punch myself in the face until my face was covered in bruises and black and blue. When I was doing shit like that, and it wasn't all the time, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, when I was going through some really weird shit, I would just beat the fucking piss out of myself, because it makes you feel in control of your pain. When you're in that type of mentality, it feels like some outside force is putting pain on you, and you don't understand it. You don't know why it's happening, and you want to reclaim that shit. When I would punch myself in the face over and over again until my eye could barely open, it was for that. Maybe I didn't realize it then why I was doing it, but that's what it is from a psychological standpoint. People who do self-harm, they want to feel like they're in control of their pain. Why does somebody else get to dictate how I feel pain in my life? I'm going to beat the fucking shit out of myself, and I'm going to be in control of the pain that I feel. That's why people do it. At least I'm not a qualified psychologist, but that's what I think my personal experience with self-harm was. I'm not afraid to talk about it, because, I don't think I would do it again. I'm hoping that nothing will happen in my life that would cause me to want to hurt myself like that, where I would beat the fucking piss out of myself because it felt like I was in control. That's what it really is. What's my biggest gripe right now? I'm not in control of my life from an independent financial perspective. I don't have an income. I don't have the opportunity to succeed right now, at least. But that's not what those things are shitty. Yeah. I would much rather be in a different spot in my life. But that's not what caused me to beat the fucking piss out of myself. I'm talking about real pain that you feel like you don't know where it's coming from. It's a mental thing, but it becomes a physical thing. And when you're feeling like that, at least in my case, I guess people handle it differently. Some people can meditate or do some kind of a spiritual a ritual, like a healing, or using music to kind of protect yourself. I don't know, man. I'm just throwing stuff out there, seeing what makes sense. But to me, in those situations where I felt I had no control over my path, and I was feeling actual physical pain and shit, I would just beat the fuck out of myself, because it made me feel like, at least if I'm going to feel shitty, at least I'm the one doing it. It sounds stupid, but you have to put yourself in that position to really understand how crazy that sounds. But in the moment, it seems like the right thing to do. And again, I'm not a qualified anything, man. I've never read books about this, and it's only happened to me maybe 2 or 3 times in my life where I felt like that, where that was my answer for some reason to the pain I was feeling. But so yeah, I know people that is a big problem. People self-harm, whether cutting or doing other shit. You could look at doing drugs as the same thing. People who drink themselves to death. Leaving Las Vegas, great movie, Nicolas Cage. He goes to Vegas to just drink himself to death because he can't, I guess he doesn't want to do anything else to kill himself. He's like, I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to drink myself to death. I'm going to drink until I die. That's a form of suicide. Maybe it doesn't look like that, but it really is. Supposedly that's what Ozzy Osbourne was singing about in that Suicide Solution, because he probably went through shit like that. So people handle situations like that in different ways. I don't know I think it's based on a book. I don't know if it was a true story, but maybe the guy's wife left him and whatever. He lost his job. He's like, I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to drink myself to death. And that's my poetic end. Like, I could have been in that position. I was 40 when I lost my job. I could have done something like that. But I wasn't in a miserable place. I still knew I had something to offer. And this was what I've wanted to do my entire life. So I was, fuck it. I'm trying to turn that bad situation into a positive for myself, for my future. But it's also something I don't have control of where this path is going to go. I don't have control over it. All I can do, and I repeat this almost every time I talk, is just put these stories out there, and hopefully one day soon, somebody will show the interest to actually develop a project like this. It's not an easy project. These aren't like Hallmark movies that you can make with cliche. I don't want to make fun of stuff like that. I feel like I sound snobby when I'm like, what am I? You think I'm going to write a Hallmark movie? What do you think I am, man? There's nothing wrong if you enjoy that type of entertainment. It's good, wholesome, family entertainment. There's a market for that, just like anything else. But there's a market for this as well, a huge market. I think Black Mirror was probably the best show of the last 10, 20 years, whenever it started. Black Mirror is the most intelligent show I've seen to deal with our new technological overlords. I don't think anybody else besides Rick and Morty really dives as deeply into the despair of it, the social media angle, and all the other bullshit. I guess social media creeps in my head first. Black Mirror, have they won awards? Like To me, they should have won a bunch of awards. I guess in the British scene, yeah. Um, I don't know. All right, USS Callister won 4 Emmy Awards. San Junipero won 2 Emmy Awards. All right, so they've gotten their due. They deserve all that shit. Bandersnatch won 2 Emmy Awards. Um, so yeah, they've been nominated a lot. BAFTA and other stuff. So yeah, I think it's the best show of the last, whenever it started, 2014. Um, I guess it started back in 2011, according to this on Wikipedia. But yeah, it's a great show, man. I have to mention Black Mirror constantly because it's a big reason I went this direction in this type of a series. They've made 33 episodes starting in 2011, and it's still going on. That's good. I didn't know if they were still making new episodes. So good for them. Yeah, there's some. Nobody else gets to the heart of the disturbing nature of technology. You look at that episode, 15 Million Merits. I think that's what it was called. That's probably my favorite out of everything. 15 Million Merits. Absolutely could have been like an award-winning science fiction movie. I think it's the best look at the disturbing side of internet culture. I've been in that position, actually literally exercising on my bike and watching like pornography as a motivation. I would ride an exercise bike in my apartment and watch like porn, almost like exactly what this episode portrayed. I was like living that episode. That was like my motivation to keep cycling, was to watch pornography. I'm like, I could look like these people. I could have crazy sex if I improved my body appearance. It was like, yeah, it was a motivating. Like, now I look back, yeah, it's a really fucked up thing to do, I guess. But I don't know. I don't really think porn is that big of an idea, that big of a vice. If pornography is your vice, and you're not doing that bad. It is a vice, like, because it could become an addiction. I've been addicted to porn, at least to some degree. Like, I talked about that before, yeah. But it's a great episode. 15 Million Merits from 2011. The main character, Daniel Kaluuya. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. The guy who played Bing, Daniel Kaluuya. If you've never watched Black Mirror, maybe that's a good starting point, but I don't know. It's a really disturbing look at the internet age of humanity and how the internet has shaped the new generation for better or worse. Even though this story takes part in like in the future, it's an amazing episode. I think it's my favorite. Like if my only knowledge of Black Mirror was that episode, I would still think it's like one of the best shows of all time. But I got pretty addicted to Black Mirror. I think I'm pretty caught up on all the seasons. Maybe not recently, but I think that's all for now. I'm starting to blabber about nothing. So this was a different experience reading this story today. I haven't read it in a couple years. It's just been sitting without anything really happening. Could this be like something I take to a local theater group and say, hey man, I got a pretty interesting play. You want to do this as like a local theater group? Theater. I have trouble saying that word. Theater group. Theater group. The theater. And I don't know, you could do this as a stage play. You just have to have really cheap set designs when they're in the car and when they're at the lake with Gary fishing, and then in the bait shop, in the Chuck E. Cheese place. Like, there's a couple different settings that I guess you could do as a stage play. Just, it's not too technical, nothing too crazy, and at the end, you just have to somehow show the guy on fire. I don't know how you do that. I know how you would do that on a cinematic angle. You know, you could use CGI to really make it awesome. That Todd is like a human fireball, like I wrote it. He's running around the parking lot yelling like, ah, why did I do this? He's, as soon as he sets himself on fire, he's like having second thoughts like, oh fuck, why did I do this? Why did I do this? And he's just running around like a fireball. You could easily show that with CGI, however they do that shit. But in terms of a stage play, I don't know how you show that. Is there like a fake fire? I don't know. I'm just thinking stupid shit. I don't know how you would show that on a stage. Because this works as a stage play. There's a lot of dialogue, and maybe you would shorten it to maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes as a stage play. It would be maybe shortened, and you cut out some scenes that don't work. So it could be, out of all my scripts, this is the only one that could work as a stage play. And that would be a cool starting point for something like this. Maybe that's how it starts. It's a local community group putting this play on, and then it could grow from there. I'm just trying to think of my origin story. What's my origin story, man? How do I make it through the gatekeepers and open that door? Because there's no reason why I can't play in the sandbox of creating art like that. That's what I'm trying to get to actually make money from it, though. How do I get to that point? What's my origin story? Is it marathon? Because the Los Angeles Marathon's coming back in 2 years to Los Angeles, the Olympics. Why not make marathon right now as a chance to... You're not going to have a better marketing opportunity than... I wrote a movie in marathon about the 1984 Olympic Marathon in Los Angeles. Now the Olympics are back in LA. This is the time. Just like Stan in the movie, and he's talking to Joe. I forgot the guy's name. Stan is talking to Joe, and he's like, you got to strike when the iron's hot, kid. And then he crashes the car. You got to strike when the iron's hot. This is the perfect time to make a movie about an Olympic athlete running a marathon, since it's coming back to Los Angeles. So maybe that's my origin story. Or one of the songs I wrote, maybe somebody will somehow come across it, and that's my origin story. Because it's got to be something to put on my resume to say, hey, I wrote something that became something else for someone else, and I made money for other people through my art. That's really what people want to know, I guess. Can you make financially viable art for us? Can you write a story with a global appeal? And I think I've proven that, at least in my type of a determination, in the determination that I've shown, and all these stories that I've read so far, and the influences that have led me to this direction. You know, to me, it seems like, come on, man, I just want to work with people who want to make this a reality and turn these things into real cinematic ventures that people could talk about. Because that is the coolest part when you're after you see a movie. Like I'll talk about Lucy again. I watched Lucy. I think I went by myself because I was really interested in that movie. And when I was done watching it, I got back to my apartment and I started researching all this shit about singularity theory and what did this movie really mean? The merging of technology and simulation theory. That movie opened up all these different levels of weird science fiction, existential thought. That it's all connected like that. So a good movie really can stay with you for a day or a week, and at least maybe I nerd out a little. That's what being a nerd really is. You could boil it down to that. You're a nerd because, or I'm calling myself a nerd here because, I would actually research stuff like that. But that's my path to becoming a writer. How else would I have became a writer if I didn't experience stuff like that? To legitimately be affected by a piece of art, whether it's a painting or a movie or an album, whatever, like that's the goal. That should be the main goal at least. And that's still my main goal. I'm not trying to be disingenuous with anything I do. But I don't know how to be a freelance writer either. What does that even mean? Are you not a part of the Writers Guild? What's a freelance writer? I don't really know. I guess it's easily researched, but maybe I'm just afraid to research these things. I don't know how to join the Writers Guild. I don't know how to be a freelance screenwriter. How do they work? How do people actually become successful? I don't know. Are freelance writers part of the Writers Guild? That's a decent question, I think. That's how we're going to end this episode. All right, freelance writers are not automatically part of the Writers Guild, but they become members if they earn enough credits through writing for WGA signatory companies in film or television. While the WGA represents screenwriters and digital media staff, it is a union with specific eligibility requirements. Yeah, I don't know how any of this shit works, man. A freelancer must be hired by a signatory company to write a script or story, earning through enough units from these jobs grants eligibility for current membership. So, yeah, it's a long process. The WGA does not represent freelancers writing for non-signatory companies. So, I don't know. I don't really know the ins and outs of the politics of this. I don't really want to think about it. This stuff kind of ruins my artistic outlook on things when I think about all the politics involved. But I'm going to end it here. Hopefully one day I'll actually get my origin story and I'll be thinking about this exact moment where I was discussing what the fuck, how will I get my foot in the door? How will my process start? Do I have to become a janitor in some production company, clean toilets for 3 years? Like, I just want to know what is the path for somebody like myself. I did go to school for this to some degree. It wasn't my primary thing. I never made films in college. I wasn't that into it. I took screenwriting classes. I took film classes because I was a media communications major, and then I kind of went down political science for some reason. I always talk about how I hate politics, but back in my 20s, I was that idealistic person thinking I'm going to join the Peace Corps or do all this other shit and really affect change in the world. That was more my personality back then. I was close to joining the Peace Corps, back in like 2004 or so, but I just never went through with it. I don't know, and it's in a parallel timeline. If I would have done that, where would I have ended up? I don't know. I think about it once in a while because doing something like that would have been a different experience, way more than anything I've done in my life. Going to another country, whatever you do in the Peace Corps, I can't even imagine. It would have been such a great life experience. Like I kind of wish if I went back in time, I would have forced myself to do it because it would have changed me, hopefully for the better. I'm thinking an experience like that definitely does. And you just get to meet different cultures and see how different people have to survive in the world. So it would have been beneficial. I don't know if you could still do it. Maybe I should do it now. I'm a 44-year-old, join the Peace Corps right now. Yeah. But yeah, what is going to be my origin story here? Because I don't see myself doing anything else really in terms of a career path. I might have to get a job, and I'm still applying to all these jobs on the West Coast, or I'm going to start doing it again. I applied to probably 100 Starbucks throughout the Southwest, and I got nothing from anybody in terms of opportunity. It's really obviously ridiculous at this point that I can't even get a job at a Starbucks. And as far as I know, whatever reason, you don't get to actually speak to people. I did have 2 interviews through Zoom, but they weren't very. I question if they were even legitimate at this point. Hopefully they were, but I haven't heard anything back from anybody. So the ideal path that I set for myself, it might have to get manipulated, not the right word. It might have to transform into some other path, and hopefully that works. Or I get 33,000 people to give me $17, and that gives me the money to continue my path of artistic existential dread for the next 20 years. And really, yeah, that would be really cool if I'm 60 and I actually achieve these goals and I get to listen to this and I'm like, man, what a whiny bitch I was back when I was in my 40s. If I actually make all this stuff a reality, and I can be proud at that point in my life of what I produced and the work ethic that I kept up for 10, 20 years, I will listen to this one day and be like, fuck. Like, I don't think I'm being completely a whiny bitch, but I don't know. I need guidance to get me to the place I'm going. Whether I consider myself a DIY person, and that's cool, but I can't do anything else with a script. What else can I do but put it out there and try to sell it to other people? Try to convince people what this can be as an episode and as a 12-episode series. These would be what? Each episode is almost an hour. So it's just like a 12-hour movie, really, because all of these episodes are connected. I wish I could show that in a different way, how each one of these episodes is connected to the one previous, even if it's different characters. We're never going to see Lori again. We're never going to see Bowie again from the first episode. We do see Joe again from Marathon. We're never going to see Man and Deer again. They're animated versions. We're never going to see them again. But all of this shit's connected. This is a 12-hour movie in 12 segments. But the connections are there if you want to make the connections. If you don't, if you just want to be watching this as a lazy person, not criticizing. Sometimes I do that too. I watch Better Call Saul now for the sixth time, and I'm gonna start maybe a different show. But when you're rewatching a show, yeah, you just kind of need it in the background, something to kind of take your mind off of things. So you could watch these episodes, these 12 episodes, like a 12-hour movie, and notice the connections I'm trying to make, notice the universe I'm trying to create, even though these stories are not really linked at all. There's a few examples that differ that I'll get into later. Like we're almost done. This is episode 8, so there's 4 more to go. And this has been an interesting experience. It's me reliving my own traumatic experiences, but also my triumphs. Like I consider this what I got addicted to instead of becoming an alcoholic and doing other shit. This is what I did. I was like, there was a Sixers player, Paul Reed. He used to wear a hoodie that said "Out the Mud," and I always liked that. I was trying to find one to buy. You're trying to get out the mud, and this is how I was trying to do that, by escaping into this world, creating these characters that hopefully connect to other people, not just myself, and creating enough of an experience that I'm not taking myself too seriously. Like, come on, read through that script, read through Marathon, even though those 2 scripts are connected as a episode 7 and 8, Marathon and Once in a Lifetime, completely different in terms of the theme and in terms of the characters and the atmosphere, completely different. Marathon and this one, Once in a Lifetime. But there is a connection because they both deal with that type of existential exploration, like in different ways, in different comedic ways. But you cannot look at these scripts and think I'm some pretentious asshole who's read all these philosophy books and thinks his shit don't smell. They're really meant just to entertain people. If you don't think these are entertaining because they deal with some dark topics, like you haven't ever had these thoughts in your life, that's hard to believe for me. Anyone, whether you grow up religious or not, you're going to have these thoughts. It's different for religious people like myself. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school. It's different for me. When you start having doubts, it's like you doubt your life because that's what your life was since you were 4 years old. Really, since you were born, as soon as you're born, you're baptized. So when you start doubting that stuff, it's almost like you're doubting your own existence. Or you're like, why did I go through all that shit for the first 18 years of my life? Was it some other motive? You start having weird thoughts like that. And then, almost like that Godfather line, you always feel like you're being drugged back into it. And it's a weird feeling, man. I don't know what it's like to grow up without religion, so I can't speak for other people. If you're a person who's never grown up with any type of organized religion in your life, then I don't know. I don't know how to compare life experience like that, because you can't go back in time and relive that shit. You can become that later. Like the non-religious person can go through some kind of a religious conversion as they get older, but they still don't know what it's like to grow up with it. The REM song, Losing Your Religion, stuff like that. It's a different experience. Maybe in my next life, I'll live in Peru and Machu Picchu, grow up with a tribe, and just learn the shamanic forces. And I'd be happy to try that out. I think I'd make a good shaman if people wanted me to train me in that. That would be a cool experience in my next life. Send me to Peru or somewhere like that. and I'll just be the town shaman like that. It'd be interesting to learn about that shit. Actually know what I'm talking about for once. Like, where do you find these real shamans to really pick their brain? Do they have podcasts? That's what I need. I need like a real shaman to really talk about this shit. I'm not talking about going to an ayahuasca ceremony, like the real history of shamanism, and when they take these kids out of the village at a young age, and like you're going to be the next shaman. Like, what does that really mean? They can speak to spirits. They can commune with the dead. They have the old ancestors inside of them, or some shit like that. Am I just talking shit right now because I don't know what I'm talking about? Because I really don't know what I'm talking about. But that is an interesting side of the human experiment that I bet you, yeah, if because I didn't grow up around that environment, it's such a foreign thing. It's so exotic. It's got that natural healing element to it that's completely opposite from the pharmaceutical ads that I always criticize. What could be more opposite than all these stupid fucking pharmaceutical ads in your face telling you what you need to feel better and then listing all the side effects? What's the most an opposing force to that type of experience with healthcare? You can't get more opposite than just a shaman, the healer using natural remedies and the old ancient ways and shit like that. Like, it doesn't get any more opposite than that. Like, I'm sure there's still fraud and corruption with any type of medicine, any type of shit like that. There's some snake oil salesman within the pharmaceutical industry and the other side, whatever the other side is. So, yeah, I don't think, well, I'm not trying to say that there is an answer on either side. It goes back to everything I've been saying. There might be stuff that you'll never get to understand, but there's a difference when I just want to experience these things and see why they exist. Why did these things exist back in the day? Shamanism or whatever. Why does it still exist? I'm sure it's still out there somewhere. Like, I'm not saying it's going to have all the answers for me. I just think it's an interesting path to experience a different point of view on healthcare specifically. Because, yeah, did I mention I mentioned that in this one or the other one about the Better Call Saul, the hypersensitivity to electricity, which is really just psychosomatic, if that's the right word. It's all in your head, but because of that, it can lead to physical pain. That's psychosomatic, which is a pretty cool word. Was that in a Prodigy song? Psychosomatic? I don't know. So, the mind is a tricky thing. I think it's all connected. I was going to say your mental health is more important than physical health, but I think it's just all connected. Your physical health and mental health and spiritual health, they're all connected equally. Psychosomatic. Yeah, it is a Prodigy song. See? Breathe. Psychosomatic, addict, insane. I remember this song. Is that the one that goes dun dun dun? Breathe the pressure. Come play my game. I'll test you. I don't know if I'm singing this right. Remember Prodigy? 1997. Psychosomatic, addict, insane. Breathe the pressure. I'm going to have to listen to this when I finish this recording. All right, I'm going to end this here. Where are we headed tomorrow? That's a good question. I forget what's coming up next. All right, episode 9 is Rinse and Repeat Part 1. And I'm just going to hope I can explain it tomorrow, what it's really about. It's a psychedelic experience. Not that I'm into that. I never tried really. I was never a Terrence McKenna psychonaut. Is that the word? Exploring all these heroic dose and stuff like that. That was never me in the past, present, or future. But there's nothing wrong with it. Of course, I'm not going to judge people who try to escape like that. And it's something I would be interested in trying, at least. So tomorrow is Rinse and Repeat Part 1 as we begin that 2-part episode. Might be a little bit longer. At least Part 2 is almost 80 pages, so it's one of my longest episodes. Part 1 tomorrow might be a little bit shorter, from what I remember at least. And yeah, we're headed towards the last 4 episodes, and I'm pretty excited about all of them. Maybe more. Rinse and Repeat Part 2 will be much easier to go through as a read, reading it out loud. Rinse and Repeat Part 1, yeah, it's going to be a challenge tomorrow because it is a very weird story with a lot of flashbacks and very odd stand-up comedy routines that hopefully are still funny. It's 51 pages. And also, I'll mention that it's a lot of action writing and minimal dialogue. It's going to get confusing because we're going to meet a lot of people in these tribal relations and they don't speak English, so they just grunt at each other. And the actors that play these characters would just have to, yeah, this is going to be a challenge tomorrow. I'm looking at the script right now. And it's a lot of action writing, very little dialogue. So it's like I'm going to be reading a short story tomorrow with hardly any dialogue. We'll be going through pages, maybe 4 or 5 pages, and there'll be like no dialogue at all. It's all just how these characters want to act it. This is going to be a weird one. I'll do my best to keep it interesting and light because after the one I just read today, there was a shit ton of dialogue that I enjoyed reading. I like reading dialogue better than reading the action. So tomorrow is going to be a bit of a challenge for me because it's a lot of my action writing, which isn't the best. So we'll see how it goes. There is some comic relief at least. Hopefully, I put these flashback scenes that I don't want to say too much about it, but throughout this story, this was my most worked on script that I almost deleted because I knew it sucked and I didn't know how to fix it. So hopefully it still reads all right. I didn't know how to fix this when I first wrote it. The whole premise was to write a script without dialogue at all. No dialogue. Everything that happens, the actors would just have to act it out or grunt at each other like cave people. So, did I achieve this? I don't know. It's a tricky one. Maybe the hardest one that, for me, this will be the most challenging one to read, I think. When I first wrote it, it was complete just garbage, like, from a writing perspective, it was very hard to get through. I didn't know where I was going. Is this a Disney movie? Is it an animation? And I still don't know. I'm going to lean towards more of an animation idea though, but let me talk about this tomorrow when I finally get into the story or when I get into it and analyze each act, if you can call it that. I don't think it's really a 3-act structure. But I think it's going to develop into an animation because it's probably too much to ask in terms of a live live action production. I think it's too much. There's too many characters and too many crazy settings because I'm always often moving towards these different settings and different times. Like we go to the future, we go to the past, we're going to space, we go to all these weird places. I think this would have to be an animation, so that's where my head's at. I think it'd be too difficult. But yeah, I'll get into it more detail tomorrow. It's called Rinse and Repeat Part 1. If you want to get a little ahead of the game and you're actually interested in this, the album I was listening to when I wrote this one was The Kinks, Lola versus the Power Man, the Part 1, I think it's called. Great album. That was my favorite Kinks album. Not that I've heard them all. But it's got 8-Man, and it's got Lola, and I think it's got that God's Children song. Lola versus Power Man and the Money Go Around, Part 1, from 1970. Great album. Every song's a pretty good banger. Yeah, it came out in 1970. It's only 40 minutes long. Go check it out. If you never heard it, you probably heard Lola. And you probably heard 8-Man. That's a really classic song. What other songs were on this? I don't know song titles too much. Got to Be Free, Rats, This Time Tomorrow. I like that one. Strangers, yeah, that's one of the best. The Kinks Strangers. It's like in a weird time signature, I think. I think it's like in 5. You count 5, maybe. Look up Joy Formidable. They cover that song, Strangers by the Kinks. Really awesome song. I think, what's his name? Is it Gus Anderson? I think he's a pretty big Kinks fan. And he might have used that song in one of his movies. I might be confusing that. I get those people confused all the time. Like some of those directors that people have like cult-like followings of. Is that even his name? Shit. Now I feel stupid. Wes Anderson. I said Gus Anderson. Wes Anderson. I think he's the one that was into the Kinks. Maybe his film Rushmore. Name all the other movies. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Yeah, that's to show you my knowledge of modern cinema. Well, any cinema, it's not there. I don't have the obsession that other people do when it comes to Wes Anderson movies or who's the other guy I can't think of. I get Wes Anderson confused with somebody else. I can't think who it is though. All right, Wes Anderson frequently uses the Kinks music to evoke nostalgia, blah blah blah. Who else am I thinking of? Wes Anderson. I don't know. I'm kind of losing my mind right now. I don't know. Maybe I'll think of it later. I always get him confused with somebody else. But I know Wes Anderson, he's got a very unique style. Oh, Paul Thomas Anderson. That's why I get them confused. I don't know if they're related. Wes Anderson is more of that, yeah, meticulous aesthetics. Yeah, he's got a very unique color palette, I think is the word. Paul Thomas Anderson's different. I get those guys confused all the fucking time. What are Paul Thomas Anderson movies to give me an idea? I don't follow stuff. like a film geek. I just don't have that right now. Paul Thomas Anderson. All right, I didn't see. Well, of course, There Will Be Blood. Yeah, I forgot about that one. There Will Be Blood's like top five movies for me. Boogie Nights, yeah, amazing. The Master, amazing. Inherent Vice, I actually saw that. That was all right. That's all. I haven't seen everything from him. One Battle After Another was Leo DiCaprio. I didn't see that one. I did see Licorice Pizza. That was all right. I never saw Magnolia to remember it at least. No, I never saw it. So there's a lot I need to catch up on. Like, yeah, definitely. There Will Be Blood's in my top like three movies of all time. It's a perfect, absolutely perfect movie. But I actually did see Punch Drunk Love. Yeah, I think I went to the theater for that. It was all right. Yeah, I get those guys confused all the time. It's weird. Like just for those four movies, There Will Be Blood, Boogie Nights, The Master. All right, those three. What else? Those three movies are probably my top 25 movies, man. They're just really good. I never saw any of the other ones though. Yeah, There Will Be Blood must have been just the craziest production. If I wish they had like a documentary on the making of that movie, giving away his secrets of how he did that shit and the acting. The next time Daniel Day-Lewis makes a movie like that, Daniel Plainview, a character like that, or what was his name in the Gangs of New York? What was it, Bill the Butcher? The next time Daniel Day-Lewis takes on a crazy role like that, like, they should have somebody documenting it just from afar. I just want to see the process of how somebody becomes an actor like that. It's insane to me. Is it Bill the Butcher? Bill the Butcher? Yeah, Bill the Butcher. I think he's a real person too. Yeah, look at that. He's from Sussex County, New Jersey. I think this is the same guy. Leader of the Washington Street Gang, yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis needs to leave behind some kind of playbook of how to fuck to act like that. How do you become an actor like that? Daniel Day-Lewis, even that Name of the Father movie. In the Name of the Father, am I saying that right? He played like the Irish dude. Yeah, that movie fucked me up as a kid. I remember watching that on cable pretty young in my life, and that movie really captivated me. It's a In the Name of the Father from 1993 is a biographical courtroom drama directed by Jim Sheridan with Daniel Day-Lewis as Jerry Conlon, a young Irishman falsely convicted of the 1974 Guildford pub bombings. It's a really amazing, it's based on a true story. I think it fucked me up as a kid because it's my first introduction to like being falsely accused, and the dude maybe went on a hunger strike and was like shitting all over his room, covering his cell, his prison cell with his own shit. Like it's just a really, really amazing movie. I don't know if he gets credit as much for that role, but oh, well, I haven't watched it in a while. But Daniel Day-Lewis, most renowned, that's a good word, most renowned roles. Are they going to include In the Name of the Father? All right, definitely Daniel Plainview. I never saw My Left Foot, even though somebody told me I should watch that. And, well, Abraham Lincoln, yeah, I forgot he did that. Yeah, they didn't mention that. The Last of the Mohicans, yeah, I could get down with that movie still. All right, they do put it at the end here. Jerry Conlon, In the Name of the Father. That's a really powerful movie, I think. And The Age of Innocence. I don't think I ever saw that one. Nah, I never saw that. What's The Age of Innocence about? Is that like about Beethoven or something? Or I'm thinking of something else. Immortal. What's The Age of Innocence? All right, this is the last thing I'm gonna do because 1993 film. It is like a period piece, I think. Yeah, it's Martin Scorsese, Michelle Pfeiffer, Winona Ryder, 1870s New York high society. Yeah, it might be worth watching. Based on a book, film adaptation of Edith Wharton's novel. Yeah, I've never even heard of this one. But anything with Daniel Day-Lewis is worth watching, and it's Scorsese, so it must be at least really well done. I don't know what the story's about. All right, I'm gonna stop here. I'm talking way too long. I think I just needed to calm down after this long discussion of existential dread. And tomorrow kind of points in a different direction as we get into episode 9 and we hit the home stretch of this 12 episode series, season 1. And I'll continue tomorrow to get more. I'll think about some things that I should talk about so I don't keep repeating myself. But that's all for now. If anyone stayed for 3 hours and 16 minutes, I don't know how you survived through all this shit, but thank you. That would be pretty cool to meet someone one day who was like, yeah, man, I listen to that whole fucking scramble brain ranting. All right, that's all for now.